Afternoon. It is exactly 5:05 on May 6, 2026, at this District of Columbia State Board of Education working session is now called to order. The working session is being streamed live on the State Board's YouTube page for members of the public to view. The roll will now be called to determine the president of the forum. Director Butler, please call the roll.
Representative Chamberlain.
Present.
Sorry. Are the mics on? Representative Chamberlain,
Present.
Representative Jenkins,
Present.
Representative Mozendar, Representative Woree, Representative Best, Representative Chang, Representative Colton,
Present.
Representative Henderson,
Present.
Representative Johnson Law,
Good evening and present.
Representative Thompson, Representative Williams,
Present.
Representative Goulet.
Here.
Representative Patterson.
Present.
Patterson.
Thank you so much, Director. Forum has been determined and the State Board will now proceed with the meeting. Members, my leadership report is available. It is in your inbox at this particular time. And I will read from it briefly. What I will state is, representatives in the month of April, we met with the Deputy Mayor for Education of all kinds and with the Office of the State Superintendent. Both of these meetings were held on April 8th. Made it for a nice and efficient meeting, day for us at work. We did not meet with the chairman, during the month of April. The agenda for both meetings with both Deputy Mayor and with the Superintendent is very similar. The areas of discussion were the graduation requirement timeline, which I believe most of you know at this particular time, the general public as well. PE standards, talk about that. The draft of the SR 26-3 calling for statewide framework of special education instructions, talked about that, and the ESSA accountability waiver for FY 27. There was also a discussion regarding a meeting with the chancellor that was held on March 30th, 2026, to discuss the state board's statement that was going to be issued on the U.S. Department of Education and signing on the district special education that has went out. I've seen that. So that's the content of the two meetings that we both had. I do want to say in closing, because those are very brief statements of what those meetings were about. I want to personally thank our state board director, Bernice, and our whole staff for the time that we were out of our office. That's not easy to be out of our office and all the work that goes into that, the movement to make sure that meetings go well, and we did not miss a meeting, not one, during that time. And now we are back in our offices. They're back at their offices downstairs. And I want to state, if you have not already, I'm sure most of you guys have, because I saw you earlier today in the office, please go by and see the renovations. They are amazing. They are more conducive to our visitors now that come to that office. I think, the situation, the way it's situated, it just makes for a more collaborative spacing. So please go there if you haven't, okay? And that concludes our report. Anyone have any questions? Yes, I'm a representative.
Oh, I don't have any other questions. I see it on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Henderson, 245.
No.
Okay, thanks. All right, thank you. Yes.
I'm sorry, we're on
Vice
the
President.
agenda.
Say that again.
We're on the agenda.
Yeah, we're about to go ahead. Okay, so, but next, before we go to the agenda, is her report. So we'll follow it order. Now turn to our executive director for her report.
Good afternoon, members of the DC State Board of Education. Over the last month, our team has been quite busy. We testified at our annual budget oversight hearing, successfully moved back to our office at the Marion Berry Building, closed out the high school graduation task force, and finalized our work for the Youth Civic Leadership Summit. I want to thank the entire board operations team for their dedication and their hard work and making sure we complete all of those for the task. I also want to thank Superintendent Mitchell, Deputy Chancellor Bay, Councilmember Allen, and all of the city executives will be joining us at the Youth Civic Leadership Summit on May 13th. We have nearly 150 students registered and are excited to close out that last week. I also want to thank our outgoing fellows, Stuart and Nas, for their amazing work that they've done over the last year with the SBOE team. Your expertise and follow through enhance our team's capacity tenfold. We will welcome a new summer fellow beginning June 1st. We are also preparing to open applications for student representatives and SAC members for the 2026-2027 school year. Our goal this year, and we are hoping everyone here can help us achieve it, is to have at least one high school student from every team type on the SAC. Please contact Dr. Darren Fleischer for all pertinent information details, but you all will also see this information here. Next, we invite all board members to join us at the June 8th Student Advisory Committee meeting, where we will celebrate all of our graduating seniors. The NASB conference for this year is rapidly approaching. If you would like to attend the NASB conference, please let me know by May 2020. May 22nd, 2026. Looking ahead, I want to remind members that your financial disclosure forms are due May 15th. That also means if you have not taken your required Vega training, that is also due by May 15th. And those can be accessed from the Vega website. All members should have also received in their email from Octo an email to complete the required DC government AI training by May 13th. If you have a DC government device, you will not be able to log on to some websites if you have not completed the training by May 15th. They will cut all of us, not just you, all employees who work for DC government. So again, if you are interested in joining us at NASB conference, please email me to confirm your spot by May 22nd. Lastly, if you have agenda items for our May 13th with Dr. Mitchell and our May 20th meeting with Chairman Mimson, please make sure you send those to me today. Thank you. Thanks.
And I believe the.
Yes, but we do not have money to do.
Okay, I just want to make that clear. And it is actually in Baltimore, so it shouldn't be that difficult for folks.
And you need to attend, like that's the thing, you need to go to the session and to attend.
Right.
But we need to know now because we have a very small amount of budget left, so we need to start paying for registration.
Are there any other questions for our director? John Law.
So the meeting with Chairman Mendelson, is it May 14th or May 20th?
May 20th, they changed the meeting yesterday after this is already passed.
Just that. Are there other questions for our director? Seeing that, before I move on to policy, I believe the lady, you were going to say something regarding the agenda.
Yes, I'll move this on behalf of Alex was talking from the way I try to move up the very exciting. Law, I don't know if she should be sitting on this, but to try to have that right after the policy presentation. So if I move a motion at this time, we're very excited of the immediate follow awesome.
I'm sorry, so this is when I move new business up.
Just that one item.
There's a property tax law.
You just did schedule a conflict. She just asked that, you know.
And my only question would be, so right, we got a whole business out.
That is completely up to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you. So we will move up that one item. Okay.
You should have the vote, but it is up to you to vote.
You moved the motion. Was there a second? Second. It's been seconded by our representative Best from 6. All in favor of moving up the Eric IP, what's that?
Did Eric say the comment, sorry.
SR
all.
SR 26-8 is on the agenda.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? It carries. It will follow right after the house degree. And with that being said, as I look across at Andrew, It is you guys' time. Go right ahead. Thank you for being here. That you have.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be back with you today. Today we will discuss the Office of the State Superintendent of Education's work to update DC's physical education standards. I believe we should have live today. So I will go over our agenda and objectives for today. Interim Assistant Superintendent Rachel Savlin will provide an overview of the updated post standards, our public engagement process, the feedback we received from the public, and what changes we made as a result of the feedback we received. Fair warning, they're fairly minimal changes. Then we will walk through our next steps as we work with you towards standards adoption. We are joining you today with 3 specific objectives in mind. First, we want to make sure that the board understands our standards engagement process and what our proposed standards now say. Second, we would love to receive any suggestions or feedback you have for us around the standards. And then finally, we just want to ensure that we are aligned and on the next steps and the timeline for them. And with that, I will as we go to the next slide, and I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to join this evening. So we went through our public comment window for our DC physical education standards. I put up on the screen the 4 standards that remain following this public comment session. As a reminder, these are the language that is used by Shape America, who is the national leader in health and physical education nationally. The standards and their definition as a result of public comment have remained unchanged. And I'll remind you of what these standards are. The first is focused on motor skill development of students. Standard 2 is about applying that motor skills to be able to operate in a variety of fitness activities and fitness concepts. Next slide, please. Standard 3 is focused on social skill development through movement and through physical activity. And standard 4 is about individual skill development so that one can pursue a lifetime of healthy behaviors and physical activity. So these remain unchanged since we presented these at our last working session. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, go back 1 slide. Thank you so much. Just to go over what OSCE's public comment strategy was for promoting and inviting stakeholders to weigh in on the standards. We used multiple communication channels to promote public comment. These included a variety of newsletter announcements that targeted our key audiences. We had a multi-week social media campaign. We included updates on OSCE's PE standards webpage. We targeted emails to DC's physical education teachers. And we held a public comment period that lasted a total of 33 days from February 16th through March 20th. During this time, we reviewed the views on our PE standards webpage to understand traffic that came to our webpage during this period. And we had a total of 127 individuals visit the webpage, which was up. Yes. Slide, please. Our activities and engagements included some open opportunities for feedback, as well as us leaning into some existing working groups and bodies of individuals to socialize the standards and get feedback from various audiences. So during public comment, we hosted a public comment form online that allowed individuals to provide written feedback on the individual standards as well as the standards as a whole. And we offered 3 listening sessions, one designed for teachers, one for school and LEA leaders, and a third for family members and members of the general public. And then we had those targeted engagements One was parent facing, so we attended a brown bag hosted by Parents Amplifying Voices in Education, or PAVE, to engage them in a discussion and get their thoughts and feedback. We had several LEA targeted engagements, including our School Leaders Advisory Council, a meeting with the DC Charter School Alliance, and a meeting with our LEA. For teachers, we hosted a feedback session as part of a PE teacher professional development session in the month of March. And we also brought these before our Teacher Advisory Council. And then finally, we will be getting student feedback, which we are so excited about. This coming Monday, we'll have a chance to talk to people on their thoughts and perspectives on standards. Next slide, please. In total, we engaged 72 individuals in public comment. We're pleased with that response, especially considering a set of standards that largely adopts national standards versus being a new set of standards or a set of standards that are more novel to DC. So we are pleased with this amount of feedback, and you'll see we received input from 32 educators, 26 parents, guardians, caregivers, 9 school leaders. We also enlisted subject matter experts on standards development from our Division of Teaching and Learning. And we had some community-based organization representatives also weigh in. Next slide, please. So for the feedback, there was nearly unanimous positive feedback on the standards. All of the feedback that we received was at a very high level. We did not receive a level of wordsmithing or comments on individual indicators, but rather the responses were kept at the standards level and higher, with really resounding praise for the language and the competencies that each of the 4 standards represent. There was strong support of indicators aligned to social emotional learning. And one area of recommendation that we were able to act on was to provide definitions of terms that may be less familiar to all stakeholders. In addition to standards feedback, we also received very useful implementation feedback in terms of how these standards will be rolled out during the initial launch next school year, and then the full implementation that is expected this school year following. So there were multiple suggestions for different implementation resources like toolkits, professional development trainings, especially around the new concept of integrating SEL in a PE class. There were recommendations that more can be done to educate the community about the difference between physical education and physical activity. And then recommendations that we message this alongside DC's other physical education requirements, like the minutes requirements for this subject area. There was a great quote that we got from an educator from Columbia Heights Education Campus, who said that they were very pleased to see the standards focus on teamwork and individual fitness identity. And they loved the flexibility and focus on finding a student's individual passions, so that those habits can help them be healthy in the long term. And so that represents very similar themes that we gathered from our education community. Next slide, please. As Andrew mentioned, our changes to the PE standards were very, very minor. So we made some select word choice improvements to a small number of indicators to improve clarity, change phrasing, and increase rigor where needed and where there was input. We added more definitions to the glossary, so that this is a more supportive tool for our teachers in their implementation. When we promote these standards, we will do more of a framing of how these fit within the larger requirements as a city, which includes the requirements that LEAs and schools provide adapted PE for students with disabilities. So the bottom line here, few changes were required from our initial draft, and they remain very closely aligned with Shape America's national standards. Next slide, please. So here is our timeline with next steps. As I mentioned, on Monday, we will be going before the Student Advisory Committee for their thoughts on physical education as a whole. We will spend the month of June receiving and incorporating your feedback, and we look forward to presenting that to you in July. In August, we are hopeful for a vote on the adoption of these, and then OSSI will be simultaneously thinking ahead towards our implementation plan involving communication of the updates to LEAs in schools, the development of resources, both ones that we develop locally as well as ones we are able to share from our national guiding organization, Shape America. And so with that, I am happy to answer any questions about our process.
We'll start with our Vice President, Representative Blake.
Okay. When we first talked about this, the big concern I had is if you have students who participate in varsity athletics, which is a big time commitment after school, that they would have a way to get competency-based credit for that activity and then not have to do this. Because for me, I recognize there is value in phys ed and social emotional learning and all that stuff, but there's also value in a student being able to have time during the day to maybe have a study hall if they're going to be busy doing sports after school. So the most important thing for me is that, like, particularly for like 11th and 12th graders, that we create flexibility for them to be able to have a schedule that accommodates everything that they're trying to do. So how does this provide flexibility for, particularly for students 10th through 12th grade?
It actually does nothing.
Well,
It won't, because these are just the standards. It's
not
not
through the standards, but here's the thing. So you already have the ability right now, DCPS, to waive it. So I get that. That's what my colleague.
Oh, no,
works
they
on
do,
mine
they do
to.
have that ability,
But
but it has, doesn't have.
they're not waiving it right now.
But they don't have to do the actual vision of the standard. So even if they did revise the standard,
I know.
that would be a separate thing.
I'll try to phrase this that way, is I don't think this is a change that I'm that concerned takes place, so I am withholding my support for this until we actually see what I think is more important, which is providing our students flexibility. Because I appreciate the changes they've made, the effort they've gone into this, but I don't find it to be compelling enough to move forward with until we actually have the flexibility for our students, because that's the complaint I get from parents, is that the students are already burdened with all this homework.
Are you looking for those,
Pick up practice.
that flexibility in our
Well-
graduation requirements?
No, I just want to see it somewhere, because it can be done right now without, without even putting it in the graduation requirements, but I've pushed for the graduation requirements, I'm told it doesn't need to go there. Then it doesn't need to necessarily go in these standards, but if we're adding all of these things into the standards, I want to make sure that a student who's already burdened with having to do an extracurricular activity does not then have to do something else. So how can we take the load off our students who are doing these athletics after school without having to do this?
So I think Director Butler was getting at this, but I'm happy to address it a little
What's
bit.
the
I will
path?
say that, so right now, LEAs have the flexibility. It is up to LEAs, LEAs have the authority, the autonomy to make the decisions. And so we could not, we could not put into standards that you must have this flexibility for P that you're seeking. So that is, I hear the push and respect the push, but that is not something that would be incorporated within the standards adoption. If you're interested in knowing more about what conversations happen with LEAs around flexibility, like I think that may be a conversation that you may want to have with the chancellor or with other LEA leaders. That is not something that
But I think it is related. I'm going to tell you how I think it's related. I disagree with both judges. So you are changing it right now, as you just said, to make it less competition focused, less performance focused, and more SEL focused. So my concern will be is that if an LEA says, well, we want to give waivers now for students in varsity athletics, if we push this in the other direction, they'll say, well, that waiver is not appropriate because you're missing these key components which are in the standards that you're no longer meeting just by having, somebody participate in football or basketball or something else.
The standards do say, as a repeat, you talked about teamwork. Assuming those are team sports. So again, it would be a disconnect, but they also can't make an LEA apply. So if DCPS says no, I do not want to offer this to the student, there's nothing I can do to make it better. If Friendship or Capital City also decide that they do not want to offer that to their students, there's nothing I can do to make them do that.
Will this shift though make it harder for an LEA to get the waiver? And how so? Because like we've now shifted it towards like a more academic SEL focus kind of.
The standards have always had an underlying SEL, the current PE standards too. The language is more explicitly aligned with DC's SEL standards, which I think actually make it easier for educators to meet the objectives of both at once. So these have always been in the standards. I think they're a little more prominently focused with the aim of lifetime skills. But I don't believe that it changes the waiver requirement in any way.
Okay. I appreciate it.
I'm being there. Just tentatively,
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Just a couple factual questions. So, I see that you gave us the 4 standards for the draft standards. Are those the proposed changes? Or the proposed topics, are there further changes? Because at the end of the presentation, it just says there's minor changes on a couple small indicators. I'm just curious what the actual changes are.
So what I presented are the 4 standards, which are the topic strands. That language remains unchanged. Those are like the umbrellas within which we have grade level indicators, which then operationalize the exact skills and knowledge students will acquire to meet that standard. In those grade level indicators that we made minor wordsmithing and revisions, which, and we will be providing that to you in a red line format so that you can see that level of detail. It just wasn't conducive for this, and none of the changes were really noteworthy to elevate in this format.
Okay, I appreciate that. My final question is with the changes, are they mostly in any particular grade band or are they like across grade bands? Like is it K-12 changes or is it like elementary school changes, mostly middle school, high school? Or is that
Very few changes overall, so really not really a pattern to observe in them. The few slight verb changes, but I would say maybe a couple of key wording in each of the 4 grade bands. So from 2 to 3.
Representative Henderson.
Yes, sorry, you probably said this the first time you presented this, but when was the last time the shape revised? And if you could characterize in some way, like how different are these standards from current standards? And if so, like what are the major differences?
Absolutely. Shape National updated their national standards in 2024, so very recently. And their second question was, how different are these from the previous ones? The biggest change comes from, instead of having grade specific indicators, which said what you need to teach a student at grade K, grade 1, grade 2, we have grade span indicators rather. So what a child needs to learn at the end of their K through 2, the end of their 3 through 5. That actually makes implementation an easier lift for educators, and it allows for more developmental flexibility in our learners by not being so rigid in saying, here is what a student needs to be able to do in terms of throwing and catching or teamwork skills at grade 1 in particular. So that is of the largest change, but it is one that we receive positive feedback around.
One quick follow, just in relation to graduation requirements, I asked this before, but I'm sure it's still true, but just for the record, you feel that these are conducive with the proposed credit breakdown for 1 credit hour for PE and credit for health?
Yes. We've done a state scan of what states require in terms of credit hours, and because most states adopt the SHAPE national standards, as is, we understand there's a connection between the 2, 1 credit hour being most states, and most states also adopting SHAPE standards.
So that also means that the 9 to 12 grade band standards that you have, you see as if you can complete those in 1 credit hour, say as a freshman.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hudson. Are there other questions for our state superintendent? Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. We appreciate the presentation and everything.
Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you. Looking forward to finalizing. It comes up for a vote and. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Looking forward to further collaboration. Thank you. Finalize. I'm gonna move to the agenda item that was moved up. At this particular time, which was the Eric Law. SR.
With his, Representative Thompson.
Is out on.
I don't want to shoot, but, then, without objection, could I move to defer this? That's where I was before that, so.
I can appreciate that. What I will do. In the interim time, because this is normally, that didn't take as long as we wanted to do. I will take a short break. Okay, to see if Representative Thompson, that break time of about 5 minutes or so. Will come online. So that we can, just before moving this back, yeah, I don't. Want to go back and forth, but if we could, hope that Representative Thompson can call at that particular time. So we're gonna take a 5-minute break. It is exactly, and I know it's an early break, it's 5:37. We will come back at 5:42. Thank you.
Time to get here. It was a strategy to make sure you could go. That's offer. Oh,
He would probably get a snack. No way.
is that what it said?
He went down there. Yeah, it was good. Come back on the story. He would go downstairs.
See that?
I was starting to-
Uh,
it- Oh my God. I just need you to help. Because you smoke everything.
I'm gonna bring us back from our break, and it has worked out perfectly. We've already moved, Eric's Law from new business up. And at this particular time, I'm going to turn it over to Representative Thompson, who will speak on Eric's Law. That's all that comes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, for accommodating the schedule change. The board should already, be familiar, with Eric's ID law. And the idea is now a resolution. I'm asking the board, to support a resolution for this upcoming meeting, which essentially asks for, essentially encourages the council, to act swiftly on this. you should have everything in front of you already, the C committee. We did have a conversation about it. In addition, the resolution was shared with the draft resolution was shared with the C committee before Darren on our staff, always thanks to Darren, reformatted. Happy to answer any questions if there are questions.
Just have one quick question. Were we able to capture the recommendation to council that they add the student ID to their building in the markup?
That is part of the text of the resolution. I don't know if it specifies the markup exactly.
It doesn't have to say markup, but just it
But I know when I wrote the draft, that is reflected in the draft. And I probably should have said, just more broadly, because I know the board is familiar, but everyone who watches the meetings may not follow all the things. So Eric's ID law, is actually a piece of legislation, which has already been passed in Maryland. It started, with a young man and his mom, who is highly functioning autistic. The idea, would be to add to our, state IDs and driver's licenses, some type of emblem, that will reflect hidden disabilities. It is a in. It's not an opt-out, similar to how you can say, yes, I would like to be identified as an organ donor on my ID, or you cannot opt in altogether. Representative Goulet flagged that this is something we might want to do for student IDs as well. I believe the resolution says student IDs and possibly one cards or other types of government ID. Thank you. I think I remember writing that. Okay.
It's in line.
So, when you said student IDs, I added one card, so that is a new specification before the board. But the resolution itself calls for the council to act quickly because both council members Parker and Lewis George have introduced legislation. I do not believe that has been agendized for a hearing yet, but it is assigned to a committee in LIMS. Other questions?
More like a statement, real quick, ma'am. I did have the opportunity to attend an event, with Eric and his mother, for the month of autism. It was a great event, and they did speak about us in their presentation. So, they appreciate our support behind this, to make this move forward, the advocacy that we've done on this. So I know I'm gonna be in support of it, but thank you. I just want to brief everyone that I did attend the meeting. Actually, it was a fashion show,
Yes, it
it was awesome. Eric is a fiery speaker. He is one of the best advocates I've ever seen. He gave a whole sermon almost. He's just so inspirational. But it was nice to be recognized by him and his family on this. And they're looking forward to us moving this forward.
I'm glad that went well, because I could not attend,
It was amazing.
but I didn't doubt it would go well.
Yeah, it was amazing. Representative Williams?
Yeah, I feel similar to how I'm curious if there's anything you could share about like what plans around next steps might be or any thoughts about how we could, encourage like the council to also take us up or they've already communicated the various council members. So is there any thoughts around next steps after?
I mean, I have thought, the specific purpose of the resolution is essentially to support them agendizing a hearing, because it does not, it has been assigned, but it does not have a hearing date. So the resolution both says that we are supportive, and so that would also allow members, once there is a hearing, to say this is the opinion of the board, including the modifications that were requested, so we can provide that as testimony during markup. And we would be sharing, I would assume, the resolution with the entire council. But I do think it is important that we have a resolution, so as a board, we can say, this is our opinion collectively, instead of possibly none of us going saying in our individual capacity. So that would be my thoughts as far as next steps. I likely will also I think people have different things they do in their community. I would encourage folks, I'm gonna reach out to my ANCs and ask them to pass supporting resolutions. I encourage folks to do the same, because I do see it as a citywide issue, especially during this time of federal interference. Other questions or suggestions?
Representative Johnson Law?
One, thank you, Representative Thompson, and just want to let folks know, they're also making, Linda and Eric are also making school visits, so they came to Anacostia. So I know they've been in work, so I'm not sure if they're gonna come anywhere else, but they're really trying to really push the council on this. It's currently with Balance Committee, which is Committee on Transportation and Environment, with comments on Facilities Committee. And so I guess I'm just gonna say when this passes, because I don't think anyone is opposed to this, like when it passes, it might be a good idea to have a conversation with Councilmember Allen, since he's the chair of that committee, to say like, hey, like the board has passed a resolution on this, like how can we be supportive, whether there's a hearing or not. I think maybe I'm thinking leadership could have a conversation with, say, Chairman Allen, Councilmember.
Right. Representative Goulet?
And just to further your point, I think the good thing about us doing a formal resolution is that we can then testify as, like, we can have Executive Director Butler or President Patterson provide testimony on behalf of the boards. So I think that is another reason to pass the resolution, because when the hearing does come up, we can speak with one voice, support voice.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All right, is there a motion to add SR 26-8 to a public meeting agenda?
So moved.
Been moved by Representative Thompson. Is there a second?
Second.
And then seconded by Representative Johnson Paul. Already had discussion. I will ask for the yeas and nays of the motion. All in favor? Any nays? The abstention? The ayes have it, the motion carries. Okay. We moved that one, new business agenda item up because of the festival of engagements that our members have. So next, we will discuss the next steps in the high school graduation requirement. I will turn it over to our SR, our CCLR committee and task force co-chair, Representative Thompson and Vincent. They will share the task force recommendations and lead a discussion on the next steps for us as a board. I also want to state to the board that I need to step out and Representative, the Vice President, who may now take over this meeting. Thank you. It is now Representative Thompson and Representative Henderson.
Yeah, this one's still here. What's running through the left?
I think the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was asking about the, so we have slides, they're coming up. We're just waiting for that. Technically, that's all.
All right, in the meantime, we can remind everyone that you do have the policy recommendations in front of you. And you have the task force report. And as we go through, there are notations, thanks to Haley, on the slides that tell you the corresponding pages to each of those documents for the topic that we're discussing. I'll going to ask you to follow along with the slides.
They're coming.
So we've been meeting since October of 2025. I think I can characterize a few phases of our work. The first phase was for us as a task force to, as fully as we could, understand OSSI's recommendations. So to do that, we were going through each recommendation. We had, in some cases, invited guests. We had OSSI on hand to talk through those proposals. So we were doing this sort of just understanding what OSSI had proposed on the one hand. At the same time, we started doing our community engagement, which we'll see more about that in the next slide. But after we did that sort of understanding and gathering phase, we then turned to look more deeply at each of the proposals one by one and had a phase of sort of putting all concerns, all proposed modifications, changes on the table for each of those issues. And then the last phase was us as a task force voting on it. So what you're going to see now is where the task force landed on various issues. And we're giving kind of highlights on the slides, but you've got the full report. To remind you about the community engagement that we did do along the way, we had 3 total engagement sessions. 2 of them were in person. One of them was virtual. We had a survey open over December and January and got 150 responses, I believe, to the survey. And so all that was, more of the gathering public feedback. We did also hear from the SAC on the proposals. You can see here also some of the, I mentioned before, we invited experts to some of the meetings. You can see some of the public panels that we had over the past 2 years, really, where we've been preparing for this moment. And so several public meeting panels that we're drawing from. We also did, as a committee, we did some site visits. We went to Coolidge High School, talked with a group of students and faculty, and then we went to River Terrace, most recently. Go to the next slide. So you can see we just finished up the report. We are now in the phase of presenting back to you, the full board, what the task force decided. Over the next week or so, we are going to ask you to weigh in, and we'll move from what the task force has presented to anything that you want to add or change as we turn to OSSI and say to OSSI, here are our recommendations as a board. Then we will put it in their hands. And as of now, we are expecting them to come back in July. To present to us any revisions that they have to their proposal. Again, as of now, looking at an August vote for the final vote. Kind of hold all these things loosely because things may happen, but that's the plan. So we can go to the next slide. And now we're just gonna show you one by one how the task force voted. And again, thanks to Haley, we have the status quo, the current requirement that exists right now, what OSSI proposed, and then what the task force recommends with we also were asking the task force to propose any modifications. So the first one is on post-secondary planning. As of now, there is no requirement around advising. Of course, there is advising going on, but it's not a requirement. OSSI proposed 3 touch points at minimum being in 9th, 11th, and 12th grades for post-secondary planning. The task force supported this proposal with the following modifications. One, they proposed to have minimum of 4 touch points, 1 for each grade. And also to specify that the touch points cannot be fulfilled only by software. So a concern that these be face-to-face counseling meetings. And that's that for this recommendation.
Should we ask questions at the end or at the finish?
Well, why don't we,
What,
if you have a question that's really pertinent to the slide, let's do
clarification,
one,
okay,
but
let's,
then
yeah.
also, if it starts to drag on too long, then we would just do one. But
They
yeah,
gave us an hour. Everything is really dense. Clarification questions maybe. If not, then maybe we can exercise some discipline, write our questions down so we don't forget them. So we can manage. And I will also note that there are places where the recommendations, things are related to each other. So keep that in mind as we go through the entire thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a clarification question.
No, that was more like a general clarification of the process.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's,
Yeah.
it is very much the case that there are things that will come up that we will get to a few slides later. So-
Yeah.
So it does make sense. So next slide. On the capstone proposal, currently there is no required capstone project. Some schools do it. And it is a requirement at that school, but it's not a statewide requirement. OSSI proposed that all students would complete the capstone project. Task force decided not to support this recommendation. Next, we have a proposal, OSSI proposed endorsement options. Currently, there is the seal of biliteracy, which is among the endorsement options that OSSI is proposing that currently exists. There are no other endorsements as of now. OSSI proposed to include that seal of biliteracy along with an endorsement in CTE, an endorsement on advanced coursework, and an individualized endorsement, which is related to a group of 3 related courses that a student would take. With some cohesion that they would get a endorsement for. So the task force voted to support the proposal with some modifications. One was, instead of having advanced coursework be the name of an endorsement, that it would separate the constituent parts, whether to specify whether it was AP, IB, or dual enrollment. The task force voted to add the requirement that LEAs offer at least 1 endorsement. To request that OSSI create a process for reviewing new options for endorsements in the future. And we also, the task force suggested 3 areas to start with that could be added. Work-based learning, completing more than more than the minimum of community service. I don't know if we said how much more. And if a student did a capstone project, that would possibly be something they could have been an enforcement for. The task force wanted to require that OSSI ensure access to the seal of biliteracy. So even if a school cannot offer the 4 language courses, students would still have a way to get that. And then finally, in the current OSSI proposal, there's a GPA requirement. It didn't specify whether it was weighted or unweighted. And if I remember correctly, it said 2.5. So the task force wanted to specify that it would be unweighted and change it to 3.0. Here you can see for the core course requirements, the OSSI proposal against the current requirements. The main changes there being to go from Algebra 2 at a minimum to Algebra 2 or an equivalent is greater than. Another change from 4 credits of science to 3 credits of science, specifying 2 lab sciences, including biology. Breaking down the phys ed health from currently it just says 1.5 for both. OSSI's proposing specifying half credit for health and 1 credit for PE. OSSI's proposing adding a half credit for financial literacy, a half credit for career prep, and then reducing the community engagement hours, community service hours from 100 to 60 and rename. So we'll get to the community service, community engagement one separately, but to go to the core course requirements. We talked a lot about the math proposal. As I said, currently, Algebra 2 is the highest math required as a minimum. OSSI is proposing the language is Algebra 2 or an equivalent integrated math course. The task force wanted to be specific about the rigor of the equivalent math course and put in the language integrated math 3 as the equivalent course. The next couple bullet points are confusing to me anyway. The main thrust of them being that the task force was very concerned that students still have access to Algebra 2. So we collected these modification proposals and then we voted on them. And so there may be some I don't know that they contradict in any way, but they overlap
Yeah.
in several ways. Again,
It's a little bit like reading a DC parking sign. And so, yes, may not contradict, but overlap is a good description.
yeah, again, the point being that the task force is very concerned that Algebra 2 remain an option for students. And the reason for that being is still the course that's required by a lot of post-secondary institutions. Next slide. On science, OSSI's proposal is to reduce science credits from 4 to 3 and to specify that biology and 1 other lab science are required. Task force voted against this proposal, and so reverting back to the current requirement. The task force supported this specification of 1 credit PE, half credit health. Next. The task force voted in favor of adding 0.5 required credit for financial literacy. The modification that passed was to allow LEAs to incorporate that half credit into existing math or economics courses. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said existing, but in math or economics courses. Next. The task force voted against the proposed career preparation course at Gray. The policy proposal, so currently students are required a minimum of 100 hours of community service. OSSI is proposing both reducing the number from 100 to 60, which the task force agreed with, and changing the language from community service to community engagement, which is a more expansive category. Task force supported both and voted for the following modifications, allowing hours that are earned during the school day to count towards the requirement if it's not associated with a grade. To allow hours earned in the summer before high school to count towards the requirement, and without being prescriptive, to ask OSSI to develop a tighter definition of what community engagement means. There is language in the OSSI proposal that can be, but the task force wanted more clarification. There is currently not an alternative diploma option. OSSI has proposed a practical studies diploma. The task force voted against this proposal.
Okay, so, before we get into, questions, we do want to give you a sense of like how to engage with this information. So, we did our best, to give, the task force ample opportunities for engagement, and make sure we heard their words correctly, which is why, we got the report to you all so close to this meeting. Because we were going through a few, iterations of, revisions. What we will do is we hope that you have read the recommendations. We hope to have the conversation tonight about what's in the recommendations, answer clarifying questions, or at least start a conversation tonight. But we are not asking you all to say yes or no to each of these recommendations tonight because it's pretty dense. We want to make sure we're just all on the same page as far as what the task force is recommending. Instead, we will actually send a survey. This is actually pretty successful with the task force. And essentially have you all vote and say, hey, recommendation 1, do you support the task force recommendation or not? You'll have an opportunity to give modifications or make amendments. We'll capture all of that. And similar to the task force report, we will share back notes. And we will say, hey, here's what folks recommended. Hey, here's where the votes are. It both enables us as co-chairs to track, just to make sure everyone has responded, because we do not take silence as consent. We want to know if it's a yes or a no. And it is an organized way to put new ideas on the table. We're not going to pretend that even though there was a lot of good thought that was put into this, that these are the only thoughts that exist in the world. And as the state board, it is our responsibility to accept or modify this recommendation. The recommendation is not binding. And so you will get, and the student members also will get, even though we also have some student members of the committee. So like, thank you, Satara, for being on several of the, thank you. So we will do that. If necessary, which might be necessary as we start to get into the discussion, we might need to call a special meeting if we need to further discuss. We have not made that decision for the group because we wanted you all to have the recommendation and give us a sense of what's needed. But we do have the opportunity to call a special meeting. That meeting will be virtual, and it would be dedicated solely to the topic of the recommendation requirements if we need further discussion to dive in. It's possible everybody says yes to everything and we don't need that, or nobody brings up modifications. I'm not trying to persuade you one way or another, but we are just making sure that we're clear on what the opportunities for feedback are and what the opportunities for us to get on the same page as a group are. And right now, the state board is currently expected to provide feedback to OSSI on the proposal on May 13th. The timeline was shared earlier. Representative Henderson rightly noted that we are holding that loosely. And so some of that depends on if we need to have a meeting, how far we are apart, from the recommendations, if there are any new if there are any new ideas introduced. Are there any questions about the next steps? Okay, we can go on to the next slide.
It's not.
That's it. Oh, that was the last slide. Amen. All right, so, cause I was like, there are more things. So we want to open up now for questions. Are we facilitating the questions?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I meant like me or Eric.
You are in the car, people, if you want.
Okay.
Turn to you, so just raise your hand if you have a question.
Yeah, so I saw that there was the career prep. For the half credit was not suggested or recommended. Can you kind of like share a little bit more as to why?
Yes, we will share verbally, and I want to just say this about everything. For the report, we did try to capture like the dissenting voices, the alternate opinions, so that you can see a little bit more than what we just presented there. I think most of the concern was the lack of associated standards, and so people were very unclear on exactly what the substance of a course would be, and because of that, a concern that it would vary widely across LEAs and would be less useful as a result.
Yeah, I think the other part, and this came up in different places, not just the career prep, is as we are considering who sees students' transcripts and what the diploma means. Some folks raised questions around how would that be perceived? Like if somebody saw like career prep on the student's transcript, would they think of it as less rigorous? So we did hear that a bit, that was not the overall reason. But there were a lot of questions around what would this include, how rigorous would it be, and what does consistency look like across the board?
Oh.
I would also note that we did hear from students when we talked to students at Coolidge in particular, that they felt that there were certain things that just had to do with support for the professional world, like, I don't know, writing an email to say that you're gonna be late or whatever it is, like some of the what's called the soft skills, like that kind of thing, were things they wanted more support around. And there was also some conversation, and there are implementation notes in the report as well, around maybe could that be addressed in other places if our students are specifically saying that is a need that they have to be supported.
There was also some thought of having career prep be more a part of what's happening in those touch point meetings. And that's not something that we added as like a requirement of the touch points.
I wonder if, well, first off, I just want to say these recommendations are amazing. So I want to just say, thank you all for doing that. But I do also wonder if there's like, maybe part of the recommendation is like coming back to clean that up. And I say that because I think this is a significant component, and it's something that we all know that our students need support with. And so while it's like, and I'm sure, I'm sure there's probably even some stuff in there, but I would love for that to be something where we're saying on the record, like to come back to it and figure out like what that looks like and what that could be.
Yeah, I'll just build off of that. So I taught at Capital City for 8 years. I taught 12th grade every year. And we kind of had something similar to that. And the things that were most useful for students were like resume development, personal inventory of strengths and weaknesses, just exploration of careers, individual conversations with college counselors, but like a really kind of diagnostic approach to understanding their own personal inventory. So if Ossie's willing to kind of carve something out that is clearer, because I was on the task force meeting when I heard those concerns and they made sense to me too. Then I think it could be useful, but I also don't want to have unrealistic expectations for what students can get out of that, because it has to also be kind of self-directed. So I wanted to add that. And then I don't have any other questions right now. I just wanted to say like that I joined most of the meetings, and And, want to give a particular shout out, to Haley. And to both of you, there were some really long, dense conversations. The time management, you all did great, even though things went over repeatedly. And, there were a lot of perspective and voices to be able to manage, so, thank you for putting forward this, and I'll make sure to fill out the form that I fill.
No worries, thank you. That's a
Your
courtesy.
hearings.
I just want to make sure I understand. The task force did not overall support the idea of a practical studies diploma. Can I know, like, beyond that, was there a different concept that the task force had in mind? Was the support pretty split? Like, what did the task force generally want to see instead?
These are good questions. Do you want me to start? You want to
Yes,
start?
I'll start. So in the report, you can see the vote breakdown for each of the recommendations. So to your first question about the practical studies proposal, there were 2 votes in favor, 13 against, and 7 abstentions. And I think the number of abstentions there, I think it's even noted here, is related, people expressed they felt that it was outside their expertise, so they abstained. But there was very little support for the practical studies diploma. You will see on page 15 of the report, there were other recommendations that we considered. So there were other recommendations that we advanced, that the task force advanced. To your question about an alternative to the practical studies diploma, there was a proposal from Representative Johnson Law and Task Force Member Christina Hansen that proposed an alternate. It proposed amending the standard diploma, and that proposal is in the Dropbox. And if you have printed materials before you today, it's in your packet. So, right?
That proposal is not in the packet, but it is,
I can email it to you.
it is in the Dropbox. It's also linked. If you look at the online version, the digital version of the task force report, it is linked in a footnote.
Everything, any alternate proposal or any feedback we received, any group that went on the record, all of that is actually, we didn't keep anything to ourselves. So it is actually all in the Dropbox.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons the task force has this like own landing page. So you don't have to go a bunch of different places to look for things. I think a couple things I would add. So we did vote on the alternate proposal as well. Sticking points that I heard from task force members. One, with the alternate proposal, and please correct me if I'm not stating this correctly, there was an option instead of having to fulfill the language requirement with CTE courses. And for some task force members, they felt that they wanted to see the language, like they didn't want to say you can substitute one for the other. That was a sticking point for them. Because per ESSA, essentially we can't have a diploma that is different. Like we can't say, okay, for one set of students, these are the requirements you feel. And for another set of students, these are the requirements you feel. If it is considered a standard diploma. So that change will apply to all students across all schools, not just students with disabilities who are looking to take advantage of this route. And for some people, that was a sticking point. Another thing we discussed is in a lot of our materials also from the meetings, folks have access to as well, was a question of determination. If this would terminate access to FAPE, which is essentially like if we modify and say you have met diploma requirements, does that mean you no longer have access federally to vape, which would be a civil rights violation? And that was a different consideration for some folks on the task force. We did our best, and I would say this is true for all proposals, and Representative Henderson has said this different ways, but I think it's really important because we did our best to capture the conversations that were had, like what folks wrestled with. Just because something came up as maybe a minority opinion doesn't mean it's something that you all as board members can't consider. But I feel like it's a pretty good cheat sheet to say, okay, I have questions around competency-based credit for world languages. What was already considered? So I don't have to go looking to see what some of the main points of the discussion can be.
Yeah, yeah, I do just like worry a little bit that we're like going through this like, well, kudos to you guys are more going through it than I am, but like everybody is going through this like extensive process, and I worry that I also, like, I see the concerns with the practical studies diploma. I also see the concerns with not having any alternate diploma, but I do worry that we're gonna end up like this will move forward, and the idea of, you know, an alternate diploma might be left behind or something like. Yeah, but yeah, and then also just thinking about like competency-based credit, it definitely makes me think about, is the goal to graduate high school having learned a language or having gone through the experience of engaging with like another culture and like learning with your peers? I don't know. I just worry that if we're doing competency-based credit for getting class credit for languages, it kind of takes away the idea of the point of a language is to engage with another culture and learn with your peers, a new way to communicate. Hi. Yeah.
Just wanted to piggyback off of what you guys were saying, Deb, for the clarification on what we were talking about in the recommendations as an alternative. And so, like Representative Thompson said, instead of creating a different pathway, it's not standard, you make the modifications within the standard itself, or you create more flexibility for certain requirements that an IEP team could allow. For the language, we were not saying to like get rid of it. We were saying to have flexibility for students who may struggle, like if they have, because Montgomery County does this. In CTE, meaning like, okay, maybe there's like a certain like place they can have an internship or a certain career where they could, whether you're practicing, whether they're bilingual basically, to be able to get career experience, but to also get a real world language experience also in real time, which may break the barrier, because not just for kids with disabilities, there's some students who just struggle. And it's not to say that we don't want them to have access. It's okay, well, how can we think of it in a creative way for them to have access? And so that's something Montgomery County is doing. So that's where that came from. And then of course we were, I think it was like algebra 2. It was like trying to figure out, okay, how can we like move around that part too? Because people struggle. So that's what that was.
I definitely had a struggle with time in algebra 2.
Exhibiting.
Are there questions? Yeah.
I have a few just very specific versus clarification questions.
Okay.
So proposing to not reduce science, but to add financial literacy, what do we take from to create space for that?
We, as a task force, we did not make a statement decision on that.
Yeah.
My take is that by default, it would come out. Right?
Yeah.
But we've also discussed quite a bit about how the credits, the required credits is subset of the amount of credits that a person can take.
Yeah.
But we did not specifically address that trade-off. We took them individually, and that was the consequences that we did land requiring half credit more than the current.
And can I actually say this differently, just because I want to make sure people follow, but it's exactly what you said in some ways. I do want people to think of the graduation requirements as the number of credits and what is assigned for you to graduate from high school. I do not want people to think of this as the only thing our students learn to graduate from high school. And so most students in DC graduate with more credits than even our current graduation requirements because of not just electives, but of other things that they take. We are not, we have not weighed in or said it has to be that. We also did not say, as a jurisdiction, we are trying to make sure every student takes, I'm gonna make something up, 25 credits. And so the overall number of credits is up to what we accept. I cannot remember exactly what this will balance out to be. But we did not put a floor or a ceiling for how many credits students take.
Okay, that's helpful. The OPSI report at least, I think, noted something interesting of, we require the highest number of credits.
That is-
For in the country.
That is true. And so, it is, certain things are true. That is based on and this is one of the reasons we put up the current requirements now. So folks, because we didn't want to assume, I personally had not internalized them before going through this process. So we wanted folks to know what the reality is now. We want folks to know what OSSI is recommending, and then we wanted folks to know what the task force had put on the table. I will also point people's attention to the staff does also have background information on each of the recommendations for additional information to share, which is not on the slides, but I think it's valuable. We had several conversations, including with like ECS, and asking to produce memos and all the things. I'm saying, how do our current grant requirements compare to other places in the country? And we do, I would agree with this, but we heard from folks that DC has some of the most rigorous standards in the country. And we can talk about like, if we are implementing them in a way that the diploma reflects that or not.
You know,
But
I'm
as
always
far as
in implementation.
but as far as what the roadmap is.
Yeah.
Our roadmap is a very rigorous one and is very much aligned to going to a university.
Well, what is a integrated math 3 actually, and then what are we, by suggesting that it's either algebra 2 or integrated math 3, what are we cutting out? Like, what would have been another option instead?
Good question. So I'm gonna lean on, so I'm gonna just give a bit of credit to, this is one of the reasons we had a task force. Because the things that you see as modifications largely came from task force members. So like Yvette Sobey, who is an engineer by trade, she was on the task force, but she's also a parent. She actually presented an alternate proposal saying like, okay, let me help you all as a task force understand what integrated math could look like, and what would actually be the equivalent for algebra 2. Some of the conversation was about, if you don't take algebra 2, what does that limit access to as far as math or science careers, or even, for example, if you want to become an electrician, you probably actually, at least through an apprenticeship program, you probably should actually take algebra 2. Some of the conversations also centered around just different trends, which in some cases universities have not yet picked up. And so what does it mean to have integrated math as a rigorous course? And what would be the equivalent? Because learning is not always aligned to admission to a four-year university. And so Yvette did a lot of the work to look at what the option could be, to add some prescriptiveness to that. And also we had a real wrestle with the trade-offs.
But like, does statistics count as integrated math? Does like, you know, like what are we losing out by offering this modification?
Well, so we're still requiring 4 credit hours.
Okay.
So even to say algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, or integrated math 3 is leaving open the higher level math. And so,
I see. So you can still take another elective
so
outside.
yes, you can still take another
Okay.
math as part of your 4. You could also take other
You need to
electives.
take another math
You
as
need
part
to-
of your 4,
Yeah.
and you can take other electives.
And integrated math just means it's more connected to a trade, or what is that?
No, so the traditional has been algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2.
Correct.
The integrated math takes those distinctions and mixes them together. So it should essentially be the
Okay.
same stuff. But it's it's not
It's a,
siloed and sequenced.
and it is
the
a
same.
series of courses.
Gotcha, so
Yeah.
you gotta start with integrated math one.
So in theory, you should be, as I understand from Yvette, and her proposal was also in the Dropbox.
Yeah.
You would take integrated math 1, you would take integrated math 2, you would take integrated math 3, or you would take the sequence that we currently have. And because you need 4 math credits, you need to also take an additional math.
I see.
And you can always use your electives as you see fit. Is that helpful?
And just for more integrated math, it's a curriculum that combines multiple branches, mathematics, such as algebra, geometry, statistics, trigonometry, through a single unified course, rather than teaching them in isolation. Yeah, that's what it's defined integrated math.
New York used to do that for, they call it course 1, course 2, course 3. And because the theory was you don't want to just do all algebra, then move to all geometry. You want to kind of spread out the concepts so you don't forget.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Anyway, and then did any of the task force members or, and any chance, did either of you talk to LEA leadership on the operational addition of adding a 4th check-in?
Oh, about the post-secondary
Yeah.
check-ins. I don't know if we talked to, like, had a group of LEA leaders specifically that we talked to about this. I think we heard this from educators and we heard this from young people. We also heard generally that this is we did hear some pushback, maybe it was Bridget, who actually is an LEA leader, who said essentially, we heard some things about the ratio, the counselor ratios. We also heard some things about specifying who is doing this.
Yeah.
Like, is it an advisor, like those kinds of questions? And
Otherwise,
so
we don't
there
have to
are
speak for-
implementation notes specifying who's gonna do it, all the different things. Most people felt 4 was reasonable throughout the course of. We did have I think a communication breakdown in one of the conversations where people were thinking it was gonna be like 4 a year or something. That was the only time people were like, wait a minute, that's too much, but, and then
Is it?
I,
Like, if we had the capacity, I would love every kid to have another extra adult coaching them through everything, but.
I'm just
I think my
channeling
question is,
previous conversations. I am not.
What is the actual operational capacity, right, to do it, and how much more does it add to, right, because I think in general, on both the OSCE recognition and ours, I will say, continues to add to the teacher's plate in a way, right, without necessarily taking things off of it. Is my read, right, so. I'm not against it, I'm just curious what the practitioner feedback was.
Well, I think I will say this, we did not hear that 4 was too many from any of the practitioners.
Okay.
I will also say that the WTU position on most of the things was like, don't try to take the things off of our plate. We are professionals and we don't want this to be outsourced either outside of,
Right, to like a CBO or.
yeah, or just like, some of the conversations around, competency, what does it mean to not require a school to do something? And equity, does that mean that everybody doesn't get certain things? So I will say again, and so I'm happy to point people in the direction of, because I am essentially acting as an interpreter for other people. But if you are interested in teacher perspectives on the changes to the requirements, the WTU did go on the record about like what they wanted specifically with the course requirement changes.
This is, I don't need a like comprehensive overview, but I'm really curious. I mean, I feel like we've been having this conversation for a very long time. And I remember when we started talking about the graduate profile, the main things, right, and I'll read some of them, were critical thinking and problem solving, information, media, and technology literacy, communication and collaboration skills, social, emotional, and physical well-being, learner agency, and global leadership. And I will say, like, that's not what I read from the changes that have been made, right? And I'm curious, you know, what the sort of, what your read is of the sort of progression from the rationale we did this. And some of the changes that have kind of originally came up that got dropped, or like, how did this end up being so much more of a tweak than a kind of like, right? Because those words are ambitious. Those words are
Well,
quite different as a goal, right? Than what I'm reading. And so I think, and just your read of, I mean, you two have been much deeper in the work. Like, you know, do you think it hits those things?
I will tell you what we
What
charge the
changed?
task force with. And what filters we ask folks to use, as they consider the recommendations. I think it's the best way, to answer that. I will also tell you, my, personal individual opinion, which I don't think is, I can't tell you is the opinion of the task force. I think it's always important to specify, which is which. So first, we did actually ask, the task force members, to consider the graduate profile, and the skills that we want students to have in the graduate profile as they consider each of the recommendations. I would say largely, what we stewarded, was doing our best to say, hey, here's what's proposed, and how do we help give you the resources, to make decisions about what you would like to see. I also think, and this gets into, you know, so we did ask the task force to use that as a filter. Separately, I think that our goal is policy, and how you do that in many ways. How is implementation, but also some of this is achieved in the how.
That's fair. That's fair.
And I think that which also, and this is now getting into my opinion, which is also why, in retrospect, we had really robust conversations about the implementation and the how. And we did our best, to capture, and told people along the way, and I think we were true to this, and said, we will give back to OSSI all of the notes about how do we actually do this
That's
in a
great.
way, right?
That's great.
I would lastly note, and this is something that, I am toying with, maybe the board should consider. I think some of the conversations we also should be having, are about like course equivalency, and how do we, do a better job of working with OSSI to say, here's what this could look like. So for example, I know, both you and Representative Boulay, have brought up concerns about parents who are like, my kid doesn't, we're not talking about the floor, we are talking about the ceiling. So should you be able to take, AP African American history as one of your US history credits, right? Is that equivalent, or is something else equivalent? That also matters for some of the conversations we've had, more recently, where parents have shown up in front of us and said, I transferred schools, and none of that work has counted, right? And so doing some of the, and this is implementation work, which in my opinion, even though I think it is very important, I am a purist and should not show up in the grad requirements. I do think that conversation, supports, like, to your point, how does that look? Like, these might be the right building blocks, but it also matters, what those building blocks look like when we talk about the skill set. So that is my individual opinion. I don't know what Representative Henderson might have to add to that.
Yeah, I would say, like, big picture, I think there was just a lot of resistance to lowering requirements. And so that kept us from changing a lot, I think, in a lot of ways. Another part of that was the capacity question. So things like the capstone resistance was mainly because, like, we don't think that all schools can add this, implement it well, without considerably more resource, not that it's a bad idea. And I also think like it is about like. There's the graduation requirements and there's all the stuff that gets our kids there. So like, I think, we know students who fit the graduate profile already. Because of the experiences they've had at DC schools. So it's not that it's the requirements that I think are the conduit or the barrier to that.
I guess.
I agree with that.
So, do you have anything else? So I'll go now. I just want to thank you both, first of all, for the time you put into this, Haley as well. I know there was talk about whether we should do this or not, but I think it's definitely proven to be very useful. And I universally like what you recommended. I like that we've kept the science requirement at a high level. I like that you got rid of the cap study for their development, so you're not then piling more on while we put that back on. I think that's a very good compromise. I think you've struck the right balance between having flexibility for students, but then also still keeping rigorous requirements. I like that you have the compromise in math. I think that makes a lot of sense that we've done that. And then I really also like that you have for the foreign language requirements and then for electives, the ability to do the competency-based credits in there. I think that's really important. I'll drop my concerns about true class because you've addressed it here with these, with that flexibility. So I think this, just overall, it's a vast improvement over what was proposed. Just two very quick questions. First with financial literacy. You talked about like that they could incorporate it into other coursework. Representative Henderson, is there a way to, and maybe the Representative Thompson, you already mentioned this, but is there a way like if a student takes AP economics, that would just be viewed as comparable and you wouldn't need to do that at all?
That would help. So it is a question of the LEAs make the determinations about what courses satisfy requirements. So it's up to them. I think OSSI has provided some guidance and maybe hasn't updated it in a while. And maybe that's something it has to do is to clarify what those equivalencies are. Substitutions might be. The counter concern about that is we have pretty robust financial literacy standards. And so along the lines of what you're asking about PE, like somebody's gonna have to see if those are equivalent and make that determination, but that's up to the LEAs.
Yeah, I think the other thing, and I believe in the Fuller report, Haley reflects this in the language. Because Haley is the person who actually is the main main author of the report. Robert and I are editors, more so. And of course, we had comments from the task force members, but Haley was the one who literally was like, okay, this is what they said, and did the assembly, right? And of course, once you do the assembly, one of the things I believe Haley's language noted was OSSI also would then have to clarify, and we as the board should clarify if we are saying, does something double count? So for example, within the 4 maths, if one of those maths that you are counting is something that could satisfy the financial literacy requirement, do you get 1.5 credits for that? That's unclear. If we would have said it just has to be a financial literacy course, the answer is clear, it is no. There are places, again, for the board to weigh in that we didn't necessarily get to. So while this is really good work, we do still have some work to do and some points of clarification. Or we can say, OSSI, you make the decision, but that is unclear the way the task force recommendations are written.
Well, just incredible job, the vast improvement over what was proposed. My last question, I guess, really is can we, if we haven't done so already, put these up, where you have all your meetings up on the website, are these up there already, these 2 reports, or are they going?
So yes, the task force report is up both in the Dropbox for this meeting and on the task force page on the SBOE website.
It's up there already.
OSSI's proposal is not on our website. It is in the Dropbox because we were referencing it from the task force. You, I believe, can also find that on Aussie's site.
Put both of these up on the website.
So the one in your left hand is Aussie's. That is in the Dropbox, but it's not on SBOE's website because it's not our proposal, but you can find it
I
on
can
Aussie's
link it to
website.
their website. Great. Okay, great. I mean, this is incredible. Thank you all for your hard work on this. And I just hope Aussie submits something to us that incorporates all these changes.
Well, I'm gonna leave that up to you. That's the heavy lifting. Being a leadership.
Pressure. Okay, is there any other questions we have for our task force leaders here?
Okay. Also, I mean, I should note, if you do want to have a conversation, we are happy to have conversations, because it's a lot of information. And we respect, that everybody, has different processing. And so we will also reach out to say, hey, is there anything you want to talk through, or is anything you want to clarify, is there anything we can point you to? Because that was also helpful for us. We're not going to pretend that, we just woke up and knew all the things or fixed all the things, and or we did not rely on a lot of folks' expertise. And so I just want to note that you will again get an email tomorrow. And you do not, I mean, you can fill it out tomorrow if you, I'm not going to be mad if everybody makes a decision tomorrow. But please do have conversations with us, because it is our responsibility as a board to recommend something back to Afi. And we want to make sure that you all are well equipped as our colleagues to do so. And also we want to very much thank Haley and the task force for making this work possible. We appreciate folks thanking us. If they got some more, we accept gifts. Maybe not outside of the Vega guidelines.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
it's
I was like,
$20.
Less than $20, but no, I'm just joking. But yeah, no, but really, this would not have happened without not just Haley's work, but the work of all the people who showed up to the meetings on a regular basis, literally took time outside of that to write proposals, read other people's thoughts, all the things. And so just want to make sure that they are noted as well, and we share that appreciation. That's all I have.
Anything else from you?
I'll just reiterate, we asked a lot of the task force members, and they did a lot, so we will find a way to thank them appropriately, but certainly want to do so publicly. And just reiterate, we are available to talk through anything, point to, like, everything's available. But there's a lot of it, so we need help directing to grow parts. Thank you all.
Yes, all right, we'll move on then to preliminary 8, which is actually related to this, so I think we can probably do this quickly because a lot of it has been addressed in this discussion. So the next item on the agenda is to debrief on the April public meeting panel, which was entitled Reflection for the High School Graduation Requirements Task Force. We've just had a lengthy discussion on those requirements, so I just want to see if there's any discussion that anybody has in addition to what we just talked about regarding high school graduation task force panel. Anything further on that subject before we move on? Covered it? Okay, great. All right, let's move on then to item 9, which is the committee reports. We'll start with the admin committee. So at the recent admin committee, I'm going to try not to get too excited talking about this because it was truly amazing what was presented. So we did what are called key performance indicators, and Bernice put forward what I would classify as perhaps the best APIs that have ever been produced in the history of the District of Columbia. And that is not an exaggeration.
It is.
Like, a lot of people don't know how to do KPIs. We are gonna now have the best KPIs as an agency in the history of the city. Let's, I mean, that was really the highlight of it. I think we just covered other administrative businesses for the reports, but let's, for the sake of time, move right into these KPIs.
Oh, that's under new business. No, the admin report, it was just the report under
So I will talk more about the key performance indicators when we get to them then, though. I mean, we just did a debrief of the budget hearing. Talked about other office updates and I think we celebrated the fact that we're opening up the brand new beautiful office downstairs. Had the presentations from OMB and OSA. The Student Fest, was successful, 130 students. So the report is here. We will talk about the KPIs when we get to that agenda. So any questions about the admin committee meeting report?
No questions, because I was there. I would note, that this is genuine enthusiasm, from Representative Boulay, which was shared on the spots, in the admin committee. And so I hope you too enjoy, the KPIs that's presented.
They're not that fancy, y'all. They're very simple things. They're not.
They're very good. I was blown away by it. So, all right, so let's head to the next item then, which is the College Career and Life Readiness Committee. I think this should be pretty brief since you've already done a presentation. So who wants to?
So I'll add, in addition to talking about graduation requirements, we had Representative Goulet talk to us about the ELA resolution that we will come to do business. So we can talk about that mostly then, but the committee did vote to advance it to this working session. And then we did talk about our site visit. We mentioned before that we visited River Terrace Education Campus. The three elected members of the committee were all able to attend. We are planning a few additional visits as a committee as part of our strategic priority to create feedback loops on the standards that we pass to see how they are being implemented, how we can support. I did also share that I'm planning to, in conjunction with Representative Coulson, bringing up education technology as a panel possibility in the future. And Representative Thompson brought up the topic of course equivalency, which she raised, which is something that is very much related to the graduation requirements discussions that we've had all along, but is also kind of a distinct thing. So we do anticipate further discussion on that as a committee. Any questions?
Great. Move on to educator excellence.
Great, my update will be short with an ask, which is, I sent an email to everybody. Where I get this email? With an ask, we, as a committee, have launched a focus group and would love your help to share. Make sure we get a diverse set of students from across the city, or excuse me, educators from across the city to fill it out. And so would love your help to share with your schools, your individual educators, and other educator networks.
Do you have like a little flyer that's easier to share with people or no? Or should we just copy and paste this message?
Well, you should also see it. It's been on our socials, and Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram for over.
Yeah.
And from there, it's a digital flyer that will be able to pull up.
There are also two flyers. There's one for teachers and then there's one for principals, I believe. So those have been circulating the past few days.
Did you get my email about this?
It was already circulating before you sent your email.
Yeah, would you, just so it's on the top of our plans of box? Would you appreciate?
Oh, reshare, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'll just add quickly, nothing new and no ask, but just like, it's very timely. The, I believe it was Center for American Progress also had a event this weekend that Dr. Henderson had shared with the committee, and the numbers are like staggering. The amount of new teachers that are leaving the profession, so this work is like very timely to help and support teacher retention with good educators in the district. So thanks for your support.
Any further questions, for the, committee? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to our student advisory committee. Are you ready?
I'm so ready. Yeah, what I don't want. Sorry, guys, everything's in a weird pile here. All right. So, student advisory meeting, Monday, April 6th. Thanks for showing out, guys, if you came to talk to us. We were once again joined by a couple of our representatives and Dara Shaw from the Education Research Collaborative. So thanks, guys. We've been receiving a lot of help from them on our research projects, which hopefully will hit the resolution drafting board in the next month. Nyla and I led a turn and talk icebreaker. We talked about we made an emoji scale for how our student advisory committee kids were feeling about the school year. We talked together about what we're looking forward to and the reason for circling their placement on the scale. They talked about a large range of feelings and sentiments, including looking forward to school being over, pride in their accomplishments, and the uniqueness of the year that led some to be strong during chaotic times in the district and world. That was cute. Representative Colson introduced SR 26-4, calling for a statewide attendance early warning and intervention monitoring system. SAC member questions included what the purpose of digital backpacks were and whether student data would be destroyed to protect their privacy. Feedback included what consequences might look like for schools not implementing the resolution's recommended policies and more consideration for schools that have limited numbers of counselors. A majority SAC members voted in favor of the resolution with 21 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 abstention.
After that, Representative Best introduced the 2 AI SRs, including the Student Educator Fluency SR on AI and calling for the establishment of the AI Leadership Collaborative. I went over a lot of this during our public meeting, but to try and go fast through this, for the Fluency SR, students had a lot of recommendations, including further guidance and questions related to having AI guardrails and also an over-reliance on AI for students and educators. Overall, students just felt that there were too many unknowns in this resolution, and SAC members ultimately voted against it with 1 yay, 8 nays, and 14 abstentions. And then for the AI Leadership Collaborative, SAC members again shared questions and feedback, including over-reliance on AI and how AI experts would be determined, and also sources of funding and clarity on how like private corporations are able to kind of like be selected in this process. And ultimately, SAC members voted against the resolution with 4 yays, 6 nays, and 14 abstentions. Additionally, SAC members continued working in groups on research projects. This month, we are going to be analyzing the data that we've collected, summarizing what we've learned, and we're basically trying to wrap it all up for our last 2 SAC meetings, trying to share our findings. And the next SAC meeting will be held on May 11th, which is coming Monday. Yeah, Monday. So all y'all should show up.
Come party with us.
Yeah, it'll be great. And as for our actions, we are continuing to work on our research projects offline with the Education Research Collaborative. And we are also designing the annual report, which will be published in June. Yes, June.
Great job. Are there any questions for our student advisory? I don't.
I mean, I was there with the presentation of the feedback for the different resolutions. Do you feel like all of your feedback for the AI resolutions has been incorporated in the any draft, or are there other things that we would potentially need to add this month?
I am not sure I've seen an updated draft.
Yeah, neither have I. I think since the public meeting, I haven't seen an updated draft unless like it's been updated like within the Dropbox itself. Because I can definitely look at that. But I think there were specific terms that students wanted to be outlined or at least clarified. But I haven't seen the draft and updated version.
And for the public, we decided to postpone those 2 resolutions by 1 month to provide an opportunity to have that discussion and make those edits. So between now and the public meeting, Representative Best and other members have an opportunity then to make edits after they read the student advisory committee's recommendations. So we'll get it probably it's on Dropbox already or SharePoint or for members to go in and make changes.
to the AM resolution.
Yes.
Um,
Reflect what they have.
no, there have been 0 changes in the code.
Okay.
So if you all like changes, then we have to go and start the process. No one has suggested changes.
We'll look to you, Representative Best, to take the first stab at working on this, and then other members can weigh in. And if we need to, we can do an amendment nature, a substitute to it. We've got options.
And I would say if there are edits, if you all want to make edits, then the action item for the notes should be that updated SharePoint version will be shared out with the, to do the law tomorrow.
Does that address your? Okay. Any other questions for our student advisory? Let's see, no, let's move on then to the Student Experience and Engagement Committee, C Committee. Representative Colson.
Yeah, we had a jam-packed agenda, and quite honestly, I feel like everything that we discussed is practically under new business. So I won't go over those things, but I will highlight what came through the committee. So we already talked about SR 26-8. SR 26-9 came through as well. Letters to, regarding the nurse, letter regarding the trailers, and letter regarding, the chaperone policy. So we will hear more about all of those things during the business. That's it.
All those things were voted out in committee.
Correct.
Well, the letters weren't really voted out. They were just something we had been discussing in committee, so I don't think we need to officially.
It was an official vote, but we won't be discussing it again next week. That's the review.
Any questions for Representative Colson? All right, great. Thank you for your report. Let's check on external committees. Does anyone have an update from any external committees that they serve on that they'd like to present at this time? Do you represent Johnson Law?
I am new to the Environmental Literacy Committee. I think I got that right. I spoke with Grace from Halsey. She brought me up to date. There was a summit that I was supposed to go to Tuesday, but I've been dealing with the being back from the hospital, so was not able to attend. But we do have a meeting coming up on May 20th, so I'll have a further report for our June meeting, but just wanted to let you guys know that that is in motion with me being there.
Hang in there. I know how those illnesses are when you have sick kids, so. Any other updates from anyone else? Staff? Okay, all right, great. I'm sorry, Representative.
Sorry, the Education Research Collaborative did meet in April. I don't think I have too much to update from the last time in terms of topics they're working on, but we'll say they are very excited about the student projects.
Okay, we'll go then to Roman numeral 10, which is new business and other discussion. Does anyone have any additional items of new business they would like to add? Representative Colson.
Yes, I would like to discuss discipline policy for TCPS. And then also, as Representative Anderson said, the considering proposing screen time as a topic for one of the public hearings, but for tonight, I want to talk about iReady specifically.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Where do we have on here that we're looking at the panels?
Well, we didn't put it on there because we have panels scheduled out. We don't have another panel until August, so we're going to bring that back to next month. We've already maxed out before the break.
Yes, I like your screen. Are there any other items that Representative Johnson Law and then Representative Williams? Yes.
Supporting student access to real ID identification.
Access to okay, Representative Williams.
I have two ceremonial resolutions. So one is from Laura Kleinman, who is a librarian at Oyster Adams. She's been serving as a librarian for over 30 years. And she has helped to create one of the most robust book collections for for our schools in the city. She has over 5,000 Spanish books in the OA library, and over 10 to 15,000 books in English and other languages. So I want to be able to honor her service. And then I would like to co-sponsor another ceremonial resolution for a retiring principal at School Without Walls High School, with my principal, but also serves on board too with Representative Chang. She's retiring after 40 years of service, all at School Without Walls High School, as a social studies teacher, a instructional coach, an assistant principal, and now the current principal. So I'd like to talk about those briefly.
Okay, fantastic. We got those on. Is there anything else? I would like to add, very briefly on here, just a quick debrief of what we did at middle school. Representative Colson and I took a tour of that facility, which is incredible. And then I will ask for a committee referral. So I have now, just to confirm, we have items A through J on the list. Item K is discipline policy. Item L, screen time. Item M is supporting student access to real IDs. Item N is the first of the two ceremonial resolutions. Item O is the second, and then the quick discussion of Whittle with referral is item P. Is there anything else anybody would like to add to your business? Okay, we almost have the whole alphabet, so let's try to move back to the dishes with here. Okay, so we'll start off with item A, and I started praising Executive Director Butler, but I will do so again. Agencies typically do not write key performance indicators that capture what the goals of the agency are and then have the right measurable data. You see this in the budget books all the time, with key performance indicators that either change year to year or just don't really track what the agency's doing. What she put forward at the committee meeting was, I thought, really demonstrated the best KPIs that I've seen ever in district for any agency. And I'm excited that you'll be able to see them too. I think it measures the right things. And I believe that it will allow us to track that over time in a way which will let people know what our workload is and how it's changed, and then how we're delivering on the key objectives of this agency. So once you see it, hopefully you'll share my enthusiasm for these, but they really.
I don't think you're gonna share it.
Oh, they should.
High level of enthusiasm. And I wrote them and I don't.
But I'm doing a great job.
So we should also start by saying KPI. Each office, the ombudsman, the chief student advocate, and the board operations officer, that are KPI. These are draft. I think they've made edits to these, so you have initially seen they've updated the language and whatnot. And what we will do is take all of them, because in the budget book, there are not 3 different independent entities. It's GEO, which is the State Board of Education. And so we will combine these into one document, but I will go through all 3. Would you like us to start with board operations?
Yes, yes.
That is not as technologically savvy as I guess. So essentially, to each area, so we want to start with a caveat. This is not the board's work. KPIs are for the agency. They go into the budget document of the city that every city agency complete. So they're not about like board member votes or board member priorities, but more about the image we would like to display. I know we're not sharing it, but it's just. Okay. So first, we broke it out for each department, each team that's in our office. So for policy and research, what we'll be tracking, the number of state resolutions passed by the board. So there'll be an FY25 actual, there'll be a FY26 target, a year to date, where we are currently, and then FY27 target, which is from the budget back. The number of public witnesses, person, virtual and written, that come to our meetings, so that we actually have an active record and account of that meeting, that sign up and testify. Last, the number of student advisory committee members engaged annually. So this number has been steadily increasing, and we thought that it would be a good metric to show the cities that we are continuing to engage our high school students at a very high rate. So next, under human resources, because the human resources team, that I supervise services the entire agency, these measures are agency-wide. The percentage of performance evaluations completed on time annually, and the percentage of employees completing the sexual harassment training annually. These are things that we are required to measure anyway. We just want to make sure that we are hitting the marks that we set out to do. On communications, the percentage of our website that is APA accessible. So everything from our videos that are posted, the graphics that are posted, the colors, everything needs to be APA accessible, so we'll be targeting that. And next is the total number of social media posts and for budget and procurement. We're looking at one efficiency measure and one quality measure. The percentage of invoices paid within 30 days. So essentially, is it helpful for businesses to do business with the state board? Are they paying for in that time? And next, the percentage of our allowable annual budgets that are spent with CBEs to certify women and minority-owned businesses in the district. And so that just shows that we're not just like on Amazon buying things, but we're actually using small minority and women-owned businesses that are local into the district. So these are the ones for the state board operations office. Next, we'll go to the office of the advisor. A much harder process. So for the office of the ombudsman, they have 6 indicators. One, collaborate with, these have not been updated. Yeah, collaborate with school principals or LEA leaders, including listening tours in the highest need areas, including wards 4, 5, 7, and 8. The school-based mediation supported, attend mediations during the school year. Quantity, deliver the informal conflict resolution training to school committee partners or internal stakeholders. These philosophies have been updated. Number of OMB hosted or OMB co-hosted community-based programs in a fiscal year. The number of OMB led training service schools and or partners in a fiscal year, and increase strategic partnerships with CEOs, with Spanish-speaking constituencies for OMB office production of high-quality multilingual resources.
So 4 and 5 were correct before.
Yeah.
So we can see here the issue is with a KPI, you shouldn't have something like that says conduct student-based mediations and support and attend mediations during the school year. The way that should be phrased is to say number of school-based mediations, number of mediations throughout the school year. So that way you're measuring it. So it's just, these are the right areas I think that we're looking at. But the wording needs to be phrased towards a measurable outcome versus just kind of a more ethereal goal. So, and then we're also going to correct that typo with the 0 before the MP, because that still there too, because you see the CBO. So we'll work with our ombudsman to get these updated, but I think these are absolutely on the right track with the metrics, but the phrasing needs to change for these. And then we have, I think also OSA.
Yeah, so they did decrease the number of, at one point they had 3 pages of KPI. They don't need 3 pages. No one needs 3 pages of KPI.
And these are much better now.
Yeah, so he has updated it. And so what you see here for the Office of Student Advocate, the number of requests for assistance, number of unique families served, and opioid review growth in families. I think that needs to be that. That's like 3 things. Percentage of cases by issue type.
That's not really.
It's not by KPI.
Okay, we'll get that thing for that. Yeah.
Percentage of families served through the RFA hotline were eligible for the McKinley-Vento Services Facility. The number of partnerships across all 8 boards with a focus on school domains, based organization, serving families. And the last one, the number of targeted policy recommendations, quarterly annual reports on board service, focusing on disparity. Identified by the RFA request or system line, but
So, on these, just a couple of quick things, I mean, I see on items like 4 and 5, I feel like those aren't outcomes, there's more data that's in there right now, those aren't outcomes that measure the performance of OSA, so we're gonna take one more kind of sweep through this at the next AMIC committee meeting, get these in the final form. We wanted to share with you kind of what was done so far. So I think this is an improvement over what was submitted the first time, but we still need to kind of clean this up. The goal is to get these in the budget books, so that like the chairman always, when our executive director testified, would always mention how we didn't have KPIs. So now we will have really good KPIs in the budget book, and that's thanks to your team on this pretty, because it wasn't just you brought the whole team together to come up with these KPIs.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, it's like, I would be Jen, Burial, and Andrew on our team. It's been a few weeks going through, looking at different resources and examples and coming back. And we also just had a discussion with the KPI. So, and that, I think that really helped us view KPIs that hit the mark that we were so.
Well, I mean, the purpose of the KPIs is to measure an agency's performance over time, not necessarily like one-time things, like our strategic plan. That's what the dashboard is for. KPIs are so you can track it over a decade, see what the workload is, see how the agency is. And I think you captured it well. I think with our 2 satellite offices, we just gotta keep working on the verbiage, but they're targeting these sort of areas there. So,
yeah.
Great. Any questions for our executive director on the KPIs? Well, you
They would be just excited.
You just did such a good job with it, that there was no question. Okay, great. Actually, I'm really thrilled with this. Okay, let's then move on quickly to the next, the 2026, 2027 SAC and student representation applications.
Darren?
Darren.
Hello.
Hello.
I'll be quick with this and you'll all get this in your inbox, but the SAC applications are gonna be, they're actually have been open. I've been sharing these during the student fest, other events have been going on recently. So the forms are open. If a student applies, they can become an SAC member for next year. What I want to share with you all today is how you all can help with this process. So when I say applications are open, high school students across DC, both DCPS, public charter school students, even private school students can apply to become either an SAC member, a student representative. They could be both if they want to on the form. Once they apply as an SAC member, they automatically become an SAC member for the following school year. But as Satara, Harry, Isa, all the student representatives that we see today, they were all voted on by members, and so you'll have an opportunity to score those who apply for next year's SAC. And so just very quickly, applications are opening now. We'll share those out. I'll work with Andrew to share this out with high school principals, different organizations across the city, OSSI, and they're very familiar with sharing this out. But we also want you to share this out with your principals and schools and even educators, if like DPR facilities, anywhere where students congregate. I do have flyers back here that I can share with you today. They were Naziah, our communications fellow, and Andrew both created a great flyer. Before it was just like printouts. This is like a legitimate, yes, they're right over there. I'll hand those out after this meeting, and at the public meeting, I can share them out with you as well. But these will go out, and then they will close for the student representatives mid-June, June 19th. And I will put together a scoring rubric I think all of you are familiar with it. You used it last year. And so it will be broken down. In fact, if you go, well, actually you can stay on this slide. Oh, the last slide will show like an example of it. But you'll score them and then towards the end of July, staff will compile, tally the scores, and will identify our next student representatives for next year. The only other point I want to make here is the next SAC meeting. I'll raise this with the students, or not me, but the student representatives will raise this with the SAC members of both reapplying and getting the word out. And also during our June 8th senior celebration, again, just getting that word out. The last thing I would want to say, and we'll come back to this later on, is applications reopen for SAC members in August. As schools reopen and students are selecting extracurricular activities, they'll be able to apply, just not for the student representative position. And could you go to the next slide, please? So this just reiterates that members will get flyers today and at the public meeting, while staff will continue to publicly announce these. In our newsletters, I know like the Public Charter School Board, they have their own newsletters, so just there'll be a lot of outreach to get the word out and get really good numbers. Maybe one other point I would put to this is, well, applications are open now for all schools. I believe this year 24 high schools were represented, but we want to get that to like closer to about 40 high schools across the district. So using August and September to really target the wards and high schools of students that are applying. And then could you go to the last slide? So again, this is what the scoring rubric will look like. You all will get this around June to start scoring, and then in July, again, we'll compile those. So that is SAC applications for school year 26-27 in a nutshell. Are there any questions?
I have one question.
Mhm.
Can we get the, those, flyers or handouts that you have? Can we get an electronic version of it, just in case, like, we want to text it to like a principal or
Yeah.
somebody?
That's a great question. I'm gonna be working with Andrew and we'll get you the like social media, like we'll give you a package.
Yeah.
To share out. So you'll have physical copies. Like I know I'm gonna go to like in Ward 3, politics and prose. I'm gonna just throw up one on their little cork board. We have Jackson Reed sharing out those, but definitely members, if you can share those out. You did a great job last year with those, and that's why we have about 150 applicants from last year. So we definitely need your help with that.
And that way we can send them out on listservs too, if we have the electronic version, right? So
Yes, we do have a listserv. Great,
Okay,
great point.
All right,
Mhm.
wonderful. And I think you're also not giving yourself enough credit for why we have so many students. You did a great job.
Yes.
SAC and our student reps have really done an amazing job, because we have not seen attendance drop off. It's still remained at a very strong level. So credit to you, Dr. Fleischer, for making SAC what it is, and for our student reps. You're doing a great job. Any questions on this item for Dr. Fleischer?
So please respond to the scoring. If you do not want to score, you should tell us, or we're gonna be waiting for your scores.
Okay, and nothing further on this, then we will move to item C, which is resolution SR 26-7, calling for the inclusion of full-length novels and improved ELA curricula, and including local school advisory teams in the decision-making process for curriculum changes. So this resolution was sent to the Committee on College Career and Life Readiness, and was meant to and they voted out of committee. did you want to present first then?
So, well,
And then I,
okay, you don't have to say.
I mean, not really, I kind of
I know, but it's
Pretty
pretty
basic.
very.
space, so I know we turn to the committee chair first, right? And then the.
Well, for those, but they've already been voted at, unless they've changed, they didn't vote to put them on the agenda.
Okay, so it's not the committee chair presenting, it'd be. the
Yeah, but
committee
they've already picked that.
Okay, then I'll present, I was just trying to be polite. Then on the be it resolved clauses here, so we have 5 clauses, that I think, hit the right note based on the testimony from the public panel. The first goal of the resolve clauses is to make sure that within LSAT, that we are, providing an opportunity for an LSAT to provide comment, before there's a major curriculum change in the school. I think this is important. It doesn't give a LSAT veto power over a principal's right to make a curriculum change, but it does involve stakeholders in the process. So we can't require it, but we're just encouraging it. So we're doing the maximum that we can do as a state board. Further, we advise to include the reading and whole text, including full-length novels in any OSCE-approved middle school English language arts curriculum in the district. The third one is we focus on doing this to improve concentration, cognitive endurance, and reading skills that are necessary to succeed in college. So we encourage OSCE to select curricula that has the inclusion of multiple long-form texts to achieve this goal. Number 4, we recognize that it is not the same as a number of people have mentioned. Well, students can just read independently. They can read these novels outside of school, but although that's beneficial, it's not a substitute for reading the novels in class. Because as our panel talked about, you have a discussion of literary themes with peers in class, and it allows you to engage with students and explore and discuss different perspectives on novels. And then 5th, that we encourage that with any ELA curricula, they weigh the comparative benefits of developing long-term skills that are beneficial towards a student's success and prioritizing that over short-term skills for test taking where there's a conflict between the two. So what I need to do, and I would ask to be added to the, assuming this moves forward, asked to be added to the follow-up items. I committed to Representative Thompson and Representative Henderson that I would reach out to Representative O'Leary, who actually wanted to provide some additional whereas clauses on this and feedback, as he was really interested in this topic. Also, Representative Wattenberg had published some papers on this, my 4-3 predecessor, so I'm gonna reach out to her. And then just also checking back in with the panelists to see if we can add some additional research to this, because I think we do need to beef up just the whereases a bit, just to add additional research to support it, which I'll commit to doing now and the public meeting doing that. But for now, I'll open the floor for questions on the resolution. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah, I guess, can you provide like a timeline of just the engagement with CPS on this issue to refresh my memory so that I know what we've already done and asked?
Well, our goal was, we did communicate by email. We were going to send a formal letter, but I think we just ran out of time in terms of being able to send a letter to ask them to add 1 or more novels to this year's curriculum. Now, bless you. But our goal with this and the timeline we're looking at now is to try to pass something that's a resolution. Again, it's not binding, but again, to encourage DCPS to engage with LSATs. I think that's the most important thing that we can achieve from this. And then also to encourage OSCE and DCPS to try to include novels, because they have the ability to do that now, but when in deal it was reduced from 4 novels to 1, it was a really significant concern for parents. So the engagement we've had thus far has been really, I think, limited to that. So I'm glad to reach out to them and get their feedback on it if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I think it's an important thing, and I think we've heard very clear public testimony, but like, we never really arrived at what it should look like and what type of autonomy, like how many books should students read? Is there a number? And so I'm just wondering if this is the right approach, given the amount of engagement that we've done.
I would be glad if you'd like, we're gonna be meeting with, Deputy Mayor Tyne, and Austin. I'd be glad to share this with them and get their feedback and then share that with them.
Yeah, I think it'd be useful, because I think a more collaborative approach we could take to bring people along with that would be, would serve the best interest.
And I tried to not be prescriptive with like specifying the number of books. I said multiple, but I didn't say 4 or 5 or 3. You know, I just wanted to, like, one seemed like not enough books, but I don't think, you know, we're really in a position, nor should we be, to be telling them you've got to do these specific books or this specific number of books. But I'll in the meeting, put this on the agenda then to discuss with Austin. I think that works. And then I'll get back to you with feedback. Appreciate it. Any further questions on this?
Would it be helpful to also?
I'm not sure how important this is, but I know in the substance of the resolution, we talked about including the comparable engagement for charter schools, but it's not reflected in the title, and so I wonder if it's a very long title.
Yeah, that was my challenge. Yeah, so I think what you're referencing is that we, on lines 33 and 34, we referenced or comparable parent-teacher organization, so we captured charters in there.
Yeah.
I am not wedded to this title, Representative Henderson, but I faced the same challenge you had with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you come up with a better title, we can switch it up for the meeting.
Darren.
Dr. Fleischer.
You mentioned potential changes to this, and I know this goes up to the SAC for introduction. So would the SAC members see a revised version by Monday?
I can see what I can get done. It'll probably dependent on the extent of the public conversations I have before then. I don't see the resolve changes, or resolve clauses changing significantly. I think what we would try to do though is I want to try to get another page of whereases in there. We should cite additional research. So that would be my goal, is to try to look for sources around the country that further bolster the need for these texts. But like in terms of resolve, I think this is what I think makes sense, and this is what the panel said. But if members want changes, you know, certainly we're open to any changes. And if the student advisory committee thinks we need to change the resolves, then they're never shy about making recommendations and letting us know. So look forward to that discussion. Okay. Anything further on this? Okay, so then I would ask then this to be agendized for the meeting coming up, whatever our date of our next public meeting is. So I'll move motion at this time to agendize this for the public meeting, with the understanding that we will be reaching out and connecting with OSSI and providing that feedback to the board before the meeting. So I'll move for a vote at this time. All in favor, say aye. Second, sorry. Got the second. I'm moving too fast. Okay, so ask for a second from Representative Henderson. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. This will be on the public meeting agenda. We've already done item D, which is supporting the passage of Eric's ID Amendment Act of 2026. So then we'll move on to my favorite topic, and I'll try to be brief with this one. Item E, the SR 26-9, calling for a developmentally appropriate kindergarten compulsory age cutoff in the District of Columbia. So I sent everybody, this is what I was working on earlier. I don't know whether we can bring it up on their screen, but I sent everyone a revised spreadsheet that has all of the kindergarten age cutoffs in the country, just to demonstrate how the district remains an outlier. So can we bring up that spreadsheet? Executive very well. This is really good. Where is this from? So what this is taking the spreadsheet that was published and we discussed the last time. So there's a nationwide study by the National Center for Education Statistics. So you'll see that on the email that I sent. There's a link to that study. That was done in 2020. So I took their spreadsheet, cut and pasted it into Excel. And then if you see something in red, that was because I updated it because the dates have changed since that time. So for example, Connecticut since 2020 has moved their date January 1st to 9/1 since 2020. So I tried to reflect all the changes that I could find for this. Now, interestingly, there are only 20 states, well, actually 19 states and the District of Columbia in the country that even require kindergarten, which I was surprised by. I figured it would be higher than that. But we are one of only 20 jurisdictions in the country that require that. And then only 12 states require compulsory attendance at the age of 5, or a waiver in deferral. So we are already on the extreme there, I think in a positive way. Now, let's look at how we are not in a positive direction. So these are the kindergarten age cutoffs for all these states in the United States. So you have 7/31 is the earliest with those 4 states. And you can see there, now the majority of jurisdictions either have it in between 8/31 or 9/1 or the start of school. So the vast majority of jurisdictions are all right around that area of 8/31, 9/1, or the start of school. Start of school being either usually before or after Labor Day by a matter of days. So that's where most states fall. We fall on 9/30, which means that students will be, if they have a September birthday, 4 years old when they start kindergarten. This presents a number of challenges for students that may have been, born early or may have developmental delays. So let's look at the deferral policies very briefly for the states that have a deadline similar to ours. Louisiana, you may defer by right if the student is only 4 at the start of school, so that's automatic deferral, no additional requirements. If the student's 5, you can still get an automatic deferral, but you're required to enroll in pre-K. So that's similar to what Maryland has. Maryland offers a year deferral, but you got to be in a approved pre-K program. District, we had a policy that in the DCMR basically tracked kindergartners based on the last grade completed. We changed that policy last year, so deferrals have been rarely granted now, even for students who have been found not to be proficient in first grade, which doesn't make sense to me, but that was what DCPS did. Now, for Virginia, Nebraska, Nevada, and New Hampshire, you may defer for a year, no questions asked, no requirements. You just have to then ask for that deferral. Colorado, same thing, you may defer for a year, no questions asked. Now, New Jersey's a little bit nuanced there, is that you can defer for a year, but it's only an 11-month window, because if they were born on November 1st, you can't defer in that case. So they try to limit the window to a 23-month age band for kindergarten there. And then Maine, you may defer for a year, and kindergarten is not even required in Maine. The only 2 states that potentially have restrictions that are even remotely similar to the district are Massachusetts and New York. They allow LEAs more flexibility. So with each of those states, it's usually between September 1st and 12/31. Now, kindergarten is not required in either state, so you're not going to force a 4-year-old to go to kindergarten in those states. You're not going to be reporting families for truancy. But the issue is that they will do an assessment. If you then say, I've skipped kindergarten, you got to get an assessment if you then want to pay kindergarten. So you're not guaranteed that if you decide not to go to kindergarten, you're automatically going to get it. They will assess the student. If the student is found to not be proficient, they get to go to kindergarten. If they're found to be proficient, they would go to first grade. They're prepared for first grade. So you'll see that for Massachusetts and New York are the only ones that even have any possibility where a deferral would not guarantee kindergarten. What this resolution recommends, I think, is a policy that's stricter than anywhere else in the country still. It addresses a concern that was raised by Representative Best last time. And it addresses, I think, the only legitimate concern DCPS had. So what this recommends is that if a student has a birthday between June 16th and September 30th, they may defer for 1 year. But they're required to have their student enrolled in an academic-based pre-K4 program. So it allows for a deferral, but does what Maryland does, which is require that the student is in a academic-based pre-K. And that was what Representative Bastu recommended. We've incorporated that in. This keeps the age band very narrow. DCPS is one, I think, legitimate concern. It's a concern I share, was that you don't want to have too large of an age band. An age band would be already automatically 12 months because students would have a range of ages within a year. But we only add 3.5 months to this. So it's keeping the age band narrow. It's more narrow than any state on the list, except for the potential of Massachusetts or New York, where you're not guaranteed kindergarten enrollment if you defer, so you have to go to first grade potentially. So I think we've taken steps. I would frankly like a larger age band, but I know we'll get pushback if we have that. So what I'm going to do is, I think this makes sense. I think it falls within best practices. I think forcing children to go to kindergarten when they're not developmentally ready doesn't make sense. It increases the likelihood that they'll be on an IEP. So what I would ask is to do the same thing that Representative Johnson Law did. I'm going to present this to OSSI and DCPS and get a reaction to it. And then share that with the members. I mean, it's a very simple proposal, but I don't know why we've done what we've done. It's necessary. So, I'll take any questions anyone has on this.
Are you aiming to agendize this for the next public meeting?
What I would like to try to do is get this resolution up if they provide feedback. Like, and if they say, here's something you haven't thought of on this, then I would look to delay it. I don't want to do the legislation at the same meeting because I want to make sure we've got the resolution solid first and there's agreement on the resolution before we would do an introduction of legislation. So I would like to wait a month on the legislation just to make sure we've all are comfortable with this resolution. I think, it's a pretty simple issue. I mean, the research is really clear on it. I'm just really confused as to why our public schools have taken the approach they have on this. I don't understand.
Yeah, a couple of things. I think one, I was not fully pleased, and I had many conversations with how DCPS handled this issue. So I understand the frustration and the impact of parents in your ward, in my ward, and a couple more across the city. So I get that. I think in terms of the policy itself, yes, we're towards the end of the September 30th cutoff, but we're still in the ballpark. I mean, the majority of states are having them cut off at the beginning of September. So I don't want us to mischaracterize this as us doing something completely extreme when, yeah, we're towards the end of it, but we're still in the same month. And at the same time, I think the problem was the inflexibility which this, resolution attempts to address. And I think there's a little more work on my end that would make me feel comfortable supporting this, particularly what circumstances you were advocating that parents and families should be eligible for a deferral. Because I don't want to just kind of open the door more widely without really looking at that closely as to who should qualify under what circumstances. And that's one key issue, but then I don't even see in the resolution if there's anything about the cutoff date. So were you planning on addressing that?
It should be in the resolve clauses.
I don't see it.
Then I'll answer the other two.
It's at the end.
Okay, so. Let me read in the resolve. So here we have, under line 75 for 77. Here we have child turning 5 between the dates of June 16th and September 30th. Provided that they've enrolled in an academic focused licensed pre-K 4 class.
Yeah, so
So
I see that part, but you're not recommending a change to the cutoff date, right?
no, so the cutoff date to me is fine. What is not fine, and the point you raised here, I have no problem with the September 30th date. What I have a problem with, and this is why we're an outlier, it's not the September 30th date. It's the fact that every other state, if you have a student who's a 4-year-old who is developmentally delayed, like in any other state, by right, you can wait a year. That's the problem, is in DC, you cannot wait a year. So my gripe is not that it's September 30th. It's that out of the blue, last year with no notice, we decided to change the policy and force students who have failed a proficiency exam to go to 1st grade. So what needs to happen in the district? I mean, I would like to see us do what Virginia does, which is that if a parent writes a note, they get to delay a whole year if the student's just not ready. But I know that won't fly with DCPS because that creates a 24-month age band. Maryland is what I tried to model this after. Maryland allows you to defer for a year, but they require you to be in pre-K 4. So the reason we're a complete outlier from everywhere else in the country is not the date, it's the policy on deferments. As you see, each one of those jurisdictions up there allows deferrals liberally, where we basically have cut it off and we've left it to the discretion of the principals. So the last question I think you raised is, what should be the criteria for a deferral? And that to me is the parent asked for it. So similar to Maryland, where they put the request in and they prove that have their student enrolled for pre-K 4, and that's it. I don't want to get into allowing DCPS to do any evaluations, because I don't trust that they've already proven they can't do this correctly with their evaluation process. So it should be up to the discretion of the parent to assess their child's needs. And if they need to wait, we're only looking at 3.5 months. So there's no reason we need to then allow DCPS to basically evaluate kids and leave it to the discretion of the principal. Because like they're already chosen to ignore. We had a situation in Ward 3, for example, where the person who was the pre-K director said this child is not ready for 1st grade. That they just finished in pre-K 4, they need to go to kindergarten, and the principal just ignored it. They didn't want to. So I don't trust DCPS on this. I think there's reason not to. So I want to leave it to the parents to be able to decide on the deferral like Virginia does and like Maryland does, and like all the other states do. And again, the age band I'm proposing is 15.5 months, where all of these are 24 months, except for New Jersey, which is 23 months. So like the age band is what matters to me on this. And this is not about like trying to punish DCPS. I'm trying to make sure the resolution uses neutral language on it. I think we've already expressed the concerns when they were doing frivolous reports to Child Protective Services. But I mean, for me, this is just very basic. As a student who is not ready for kindergarten should not be forced to go and then end up on an IEP.
So are there in the resolution any safeguards who users should take advantage of it? Like how do we is there any recommendation for those parts of it? So if no one can make determination, it's up to a parent. How do we safeguard people from taking advantage of it?
Well, I mean, they can take advantage of it, and then this gives them the option through June 16th to defer. The parent gets the choice. And
Yeah, I mean, so if they get the choice, but they want to defer because my kid
they can defer.
is bigger and I want him to have better sports outcome.
I mean, they can defer for any reason, just like parents in every other state. So there's no state other than New York or Massachusetts that requires an assessment. I guarantee you, if we try to put this forward and we require assessments for all these deferrals, they're going to say they either can't do it or there's a fiscal impact to doing it. And just frankly, what we've done is no student, the big concern they raised, we don't want students in sports who are 19 years old. This makes sure that's not going to happen. You're not going to have any student who's competing in a season who's 19. This school sports end well before June 16th. So I mean, every student's going to be graduating at 18. And And frankly, I just don't know why we've adopted a policy that's so out of line with what every other jurisdiction does. In the entire country, so I'll email the chancellor and DME and DOSI. And see what they think. But I don't understand. Why we've done what we've done. And if it's not ready, I'll be glad to myself move to postpone. Like if members have cause for concern that I think there's something more we need to research.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue of deferral would be something that I would also just want to be proactive about in the meeting, particularly with the DFE, see if it's something that they think is reasonable. And go from there.
I'll be glad to raise it with them.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so at this time, I would like to move a motion, to place this on the resolution, not the accompanying legislation, to place this on the agenda for the June, public meeting for vote. I'm sorry, for the May public meeting. May public meeting for vote. I move the motion. They get a second from someone? Second from Representative Best. All in favor, say aye. Aye, all opposed. Vote. Okay, let the record reflect Representative Williams, is opposed. The motion passes. Okay, great. All right, so the next three items, I presented the bullet points that you need to go to the site. We need to cut and paste these into actual letters, which I'm gonna then post on the website, for people to look at. But we did discuss these in committee, and agree on the substance of what we're gonna be asking, so I'll go through that, and then I need to put these in letters. I won't belabor the point, and I'll do items F, G, and H, and I'll try to move through these very quickly. So for school nurses to DC Health, the letter will ask for the number of full-time RNs, LPNs, and health techs that are employed by DCPS and charters for school years 24 and 25. We will ask for the coverage for patterns in the cluster model. And then we'll ask for a listing of current RNs, LPNs, health techs that are assigned to each school or DCPS and charters. So we will request that. On the second item, which is item G, the facilities issues for DGS and DCPS. We're looking at the issue of trailers, the current use. We want to find out if it's used for classroom or office space. We would look at square footage for each of these, and then find out how long they've been there and the anticipated date of removal. We're checking to see whether there's any pre-K capacity that's missing, and that's not just that there's no pre-K 3, it could be that there's a waiting list for either pre-K 3 or pre-K 4. So we'll assess that, and then special ed capacity at the school. Does the school have physical space for all boundary students to be educated in an inclusive setting? Finally, the chaperone policy to DCPS. This letter will ask DCPS to detail the changes they made to the chaperone policy, and then to explain why they made those changes, and then cite any jurisdictions they use for comparable chaperone policies. The concern here is that the chaperone policy was recently changed. Previously, parents who completed a criminal background check could go on a field trip and would count towards the number of required chaperones. They are no longer, even though they can attend the field trip, they can't count towards the number of required chaperones. That means more staff at DCPS will have to then go staff field trips, or if they can't get staff for them, they will likely to cancel. That was the concern that was raised by student clubs, is that this is going to basically prevent school trips, and there's no reason why they said that if they've completed a criminal background check, they're any less qualified to count as a chaperone on the trip. So those will just need to be added into the letters in terms of the headings, but I will send around this, which is the.
So if you pass those back to like the letters, you know. Okay, well, that's nice of you.
I have the questions all written out.
So yeah, if you can send that to us in a Word document or PDF, whatever you
I
find.
have your work, so I'll send that to you. And then we'll put those up on the SharePoint if members want to sign on to them. Just let us know, but you'll see the letters posted there. I just wanted to get feedback from anybody, if there's anything that you think we missed on these, or anything that you think we should be doing different. Any additions?
No, I think it's a good issue. I mean, the other issue to me that's concerning right now is just where we're at with, mental health. Which is, I know is under UEH2, but I mean, this also, I think, will test our ability to kind of see how cooperative they are in giving us data. Which to me feeds into the work that we're trying to advance with state board authorities. So I hope that they're cooperative, and I hope we can learn. This is a huge issue. I know patients and some of the student reps can speak to this too. We've needed EpiPens this year, in which nurses have not been in school. There've been other critical issues of serious health concerns for sports and other things that happen during health classes. So I think I appreciate you kind of saying focus on figuring out where we're at with this.
I thank you. Thanks for your leadership on this too. I mean, we have put forward a resolution, I think, as a board that I wish the city would follow, just to have a full-time RN in every public charter school for 40 hours a week. That I think is the standard of safety we need to have for our students. Yeah, I'm disappointed we haven't seen more progress on it yet. But I think the way we can keep it moving is to get the data. Data should tell the story. Any further questions or comments on items F, G, or H? These don't require a vote. They'll just, the letters be posted on SharePoint for people to decide whether they want to sign on. So we'll post it. Okay, the next two, we have ceremonial resolution for Romaine Thomas, passed away recently, and then a ceremonial resolution for Principal Kim. Okay. Thank you for the pronunciation. I really can't with that. So, I think it was Representative Patterson was the mover of item I. I knew Romaine Thomas, when I was the committee director for the health committee under Sandy Allen. She's a wonderful person. So I'm eager to support this. Representative Executive Director. Do I just with these? Do I just move a motion to put them on the agenda then?
They don't have to be put onto the agenda, that's CRs.
Okay, so we're just here to discuss. Okay, well, I'm eager to support item I. Representative Colson, item J, is that one yours?
Yes, that one is mine. So last month during our public meeting, we had, well, let me go back and say that first, Representative Henderson, requested a CR for Principal Nance, for DCI. This public meeting in May, but as we know, last month, some parents and colleagues came in to express concern about his departure. I am recommending that Principal Kim Aducham receive a ceremonial resolution as well. She has been with DCPS for over 20 years. She started at Banneker as a science teacher. She served in Ward 7 at JC Knoll, and now at Capitol Hill Montessori. I will say that I've heard tales told about many principals, and I've worked with a few as well. But I can say that Principal Aducham really cares about the student, not just what they're learning. So I believe that she is definitely worthy of this CR to honor her years of service. I also want to say that there may be additional parents coming to our main meeting to express concern about her departure for a lack of understanding as to why. But I definitely think that she is deserving that.
Very much. I look forward to supporting it. Any questions from Representative Wilson on the side? Yeah, wonderful. All right, moving on, then we'll stick with you, Representative Wilson, for item K, the discipline policy.
All right, let's keep it rolling. So, the C committee has talked about taking up the discipline policy for a while. I think as a whole, this board has discussed the discipline policy has swung in different directions and definitely wanted to reassess it to find a middle ground. When we have discipline concerns, if a student is expelled, if you will, from one DCPS school, they are then transferred to another DCPS school. That is done sometimes without the permission or support or buy-in of the principal. And of course, the receiving school may not be able to serve the students well. I have concerns about the transfer policy that goes along with the discipline policy. So one, as my representative had just mentioned, mental health. Let me explain it this way. Let's say that a student from Ward 2 is being transferred to Ward 6, right? The first concern is about that student's mental, right? The other concern is how many days do we have left in school? So as of right now, I believe we have 28 or 27 days. Is it wise for us to transfer one student to another school with that few days left? The other concern is what factors are determined or considered when we're transferring students from school to school? So are we considering distance? Are we considering staff capacity? Are we considering the school climate of that receiving school? The other concern is when a child is transferred from one school to the other for that school year, do they remain there the next school year, right? And if they do remain there the next school year, how does that impact the lottery and the fairness of the lottery? Because now a child has been transferred and someone who applied to the lottery may not have a spot. Are there schools excluded from this process? So if we are saying that there's a behavior concern, I won't name schools, but the schools that we consider high performing, are they included as well as receiving these students who are considered a discipline problem? The other concern is there a cap on how many transfers a school can receive? So again, if this student is being transferred from Ward 2 to Ward 6, is one of your schools receiving all of the students, or have they received multiple transfers that year? And then what does that dynamic look like? Because if we have one student who had behavior issue A, now you're receiving another student with behavior issue B, how is that working or not working with the school and the student? And then also the transfers among LEAs. So for our other LEAs outside of DCPS, if a child is expelled, they go back to their right to attend school, which is their neighborhood school. They don't have the option of being transferred to different schools. So I would really like to have an understanding about that from DCPS, because we're talking about implementation now of the policy. And I think for us being at 27 days, we should be considering the student's mental health. Is there the time for them to be transferring to another school and all the things that are going on with that student, and then how that would impact the culture and climate of the receiving school.
So you're asking for the policy, or are you saying that we should be advocating for them to create one, which I just want to make sure I'm clear.
So we have a discipline policy. And when students are expelled, they are expelled from one school, not from DCPS. Right. So we have the policy. Now we need to understand the implementation and how they're coming up with the decision of where to move students. Is there a cutoff date when we're coming to the end of the school year? All of the things I just named. Is it a cutoff or how many students one school can receive? All of those things play a part. If a student, and we're talking about discipline, right?
Yeah.
So if a child has harmed, going back to bullying and all of that stuff, if a child has harmed another student at one school, we can't just send them to another school without ensuring that we have the capacity to support that child and keep the other children who are already there safe.
So I guess I kind of envision that as being part of the policy, correct? And so I guess for my understanding, do they have that already like delineated in the detailed or in depth the way that you're saying that we should have it? Like, do we know that?
I have not seen it.
Okay.
I have not seen it. So this is again, practice and implementation that now is rising up to the policy level.
Yeah.
So I think the request would be that this would be referred to the committee on student experience and engagement, so that you have an opportunity to weigh those issues. Is that correct?
We can do that, but I also feel that it's a urgent matter, because we have 27 days left of school, so that's gonna take a little time. My concern is for students who are being transferred and students who are going to receiving schools. So I would think the first step is more correctly wrong, if I'm wrong, which is the asking.
So you're
Asking for
asking
the
that
policy.
the board put forth some kind of correspondence? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can just send all of those questions. Over, as you can send it over.
Get a letter ready. And with it.
I think you can, I think you can also just send
Yeah,
it to Amy.
Yeah.
Like, you can send it to me, and we can just send it to, and if whatever he can provide, if that is not enough, then we'll give it up formal, but I think you just need to send it via email so that we have those questions and we can relay that.
Okay.
Great. I would also like, if there's follow-up, is to then refer this to the committee on student experience engagement. So,
It was one of our action items for the year to look at the discipline policy.
okay, then we don't even need your. Excellent. Okay, it's already there. We're good. Okay,
Okay.
fantastic.
Next item, so we've all been, talking about screen time. I've talked to my constituents, Representative Henderson has had constituents to raise the screen time as well. The amount of time that our students are spending on computers. As I've referenced to some of my constituents, we know that Los Angeles Public Schools just passed a new policy saying that students in first grade or lower will not have screen time, and that there will be a maximum for the older students. In addition to that, iReady is now under a federal lawsuit because they have been allegedly selling data to other people from our students. My constituents are requesting that there be a pause on the use of iReady for our schools for the next school year. So I just wanted to raise that as well. So maybe we can include this in a request, communication, about what their intent and what their plan is for the upcoming school year, as it relates to iReady. And then when we get to August and the topics again, then we'll raise,
And specifically the screen time question is about screen time in school, not like screen time for all kids everywhere, even in their private.
no.
Okay, that's what I'm making sure.
I'm not trying to do that.
Definitely, I'm not, it's what we're specifically talking
No,
about,
definitely.
by
school.
teachers to the students in their classroom.
Correct.
Okay, it's
So-
very clear.
So there are online curriculums that we use in schools, and how much time is spent using that curriculum. And for iReady specifically, there is a lawsuit against.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're kind of looking, one would be like communication, like we're doing with the transfers, communication to go out to ask for either pause on iReady or scrapping it all together, right?
Well, first, what's their plan? Because they may already have something
Okay.
planned to pause it.
Okay, great.
Let's see what they're doing. And if not, then our recommendation, or maybe we could discuss the parents' request for the pause for the upcoming school year. So that's one issue. And then second, when we come back in August, I'm just putting it out there now that this should be, or we would like to have this as a topic for public hearing.
So we will discuss that in
August.
and you discussed it in June. It just, there's no public meeting in July, so we didn't have this time, but you all can discuss it the next working session, I think.
Let me ask on this also, because I've had constituents reach out to me on this issue and express real concern. They want more transparency about the amount of time the screens are being used in the classroom. And, and just basically to try to limit the amount of screen time to a reasonable level. Which committee, Executive Director Butler, would this issue go to, would you think? Because I could see it going to either college career life readiness or student experience. It affects the curriculum aspect of it, it also affects student well-being.
Well, I think the central concern is how we execute our. So that's what we're on the project grant, I think.
Okay. Okay, so let's refer, we'll tackle this as a possible panel, but let's refer the issue then to the College Career and Life Readiness Committee, the issue of screen time, to examine transparency and possible limits in the schools, not at home. Okay, I agree. Is there any further?
We'll get social testimony. Kids, 30 minutes per day, like in the school day, in like 24-hour day. The testimony is coming.
So, is there any further questions before we move on to the next?
My mom was just like, everything that you said, if you have that written down, I think we can get that in writing, and we'll be able to ensure that your exact requests are translated over to the appropriate individuals.
And it's on the transfer and request for the delay, right?
All the things, she had several questions, several responses, very important.
I will need to approve of those plans on Friday.
And I also had some more questions. So has the Attorney General weighed in on whether or not TC is part of the lawsuit already or not?
Ooh, good call.
Just because it's people not, like, DC is not, DCPS will not sue anybody if you're part of the lawsuit, that the Attorney General is not suing.
Yeah.
So, I think that is a question we should probably ask the Attorney General.
And let me, yes, very good question, and let me be clear, the request is to put it on pause until there is an outcome from the federal lawsuit and what their reporting and data is and all of those. So I don't know if DC is a part of that, I just know that it's already in the works.
Okay, great. At this time, I'm going to move a motion, to move item M, which is supporting student, access to IDs to the end of the agenda. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Okay, great. We're gonna move to item N, which is, first of two ceremonial resolutions.
Yeah, so for, this is a retiring librarian at Oyster Adams Bilingual School. Had a career of over 30 years as a librarian there, and has really led the way for Oyster Adams and the district in cultivating Spanish language proficiency. So I wanted to be able to honor her contributions. One thing I was wondering too, just a flag for folks, is like we have a variety of ceremonial resolutions right now on the docket, so to speak, for May. We could potentially like move those up and honor people at the beginning of the meeting, so they don't have to stay until like 9 or 10 o'clock. That's just one thing to kind of throw out there. But I would like to honor Ms. Kleinman for her contribution.
Question, Executive Director Butler. Is there just a standard way we do it, or could we consider that request now?
I think you have to make that request separately.
I mean,
Because in the bylaws, there's a set for all of the state board service and other people. So if you're gonna change it, you need to vote on it at the time of the meeting.
So I support what you're trying to do with that, because you want to give a chance to honor people and not make them stay, but I think we just, for that, we just need to do that when it comes up.
Okay. And then in terms of the process of writing ceremonial resolutions, what would I need to supply or what to do?
So once it is here and you go to say that you need it, you need to send all the information about ceremonial resolutions to Jeff. So I would put ceremonial resolution for Dr. ABC or Mr. HJK LMNP. That's not in that order, but you get what I'm saying? And then attach whatever information that Jeff will assign CR to staff. They will work with you with their other additional details. They will share drafts of all the ceremonial resolution with the board, just in case more people know this individual and want to add insight. Again, so if there's a ceremonial resolution and the title with the name of the ceremonial resolution, it's to Jen. You can see me. She go with Jen.
Okay. Any questions on this resolution? Okay, let's move on to item O, which is the second of two
Yeah,
ceremonial.
the next one is my current principal has been an employee of DCPS for 40 years. She has taught and worked at only one school, School Without Walls High School for 40 years. And she had announced last week that she is retired. Yeah, so she's done so much for the school with over 4 decades. And I would like for us to also honor her contributions to School Without Walls High School, the DCPS.
I'm excited to support this resolution because we have a lot of Ward 3 students at the end.
And if our student advisor member, would also like to co-sponsor, we could collaborate on that too.
Fantastic. So, any questions for Representative Williams? On this resolution. We're going to adjourn. Hearing none, let's move on to item P. Item P was, I'll talk a little about this and then let Dr. Colson take it from there. You know, Dr. Colson, I had the benefit of seeing the Whittle campus before it became Whittle, but Dr. Colson really got the ball rolling in terms of getting Councilmember Fruman and I over there to see it recently on the tour. And it truly is an amazing space. The renovations that have been made to that campus, I mean, it's just showpiece. It's right next to our state university and is on a major metro bus and metro rail line. So it's accessible for students across the city. Representative Colson, I'll let you talk a little bit more about it. I mean, I think the goal of this is I would like to see it be a center for workforce development that's right next to our state university and a resource for youth across the city. Even though it's in Ward 3, I think it's an ideal location to be next to UDC to try to get students into it. But Representative Colson, I'll turn it over to you because you were the inspiration for it still being.
Yes, our students are the inspiration. So I will say, I know that I talk often about the end goal being that our students, our graduates, being able to have family sustaining careers. And unfortunately, we know that a high school diploma does not guarantee that, or even a college degree. And so the other thing is that we are DC and so many students come here from other cities, other states. I believe DC policy or maybe the another office talked about the $37,000 income gap for our young students or young adults who graduate here compared to other students who come and work here. I say all that to say is that we should be doing something to give them what I like to call a home field advantage. And so this is prime real estate for students from all over the city to be able to come and have additional supplemental hands-on learning, workforce development. Again, it is right next door to UDC. And all of the things that we have talked about during our public meetings with healthcare and hospitality, that is an opportunity where all of that can be housed right there. And our students can get that additional training, perhaps even an associate's degree, perhaps a certificate, to give them the advantage before they graduate. And so I would really love to see this be a part of the DC portfolio. And again, not necessarily something that's sold to another big business, but in addition to UDC and the Red Line, you are surrounded by embassies. And I just think when you are in different spaces and you see different things, you can imagine different things for your future. And I hope that this is something that we can all rally behind. I also, you all know that I am a champion for students who are experiencing homelessness. There is an arm there that is residential. I think, again, that's prime real estate where our students don't have to think about their housing needs, housing insecurity, but they can go, rest well, get up, thrive, and be able to go to school, and then have this as an additional support. So I hope that you all will take a look at the building if Representative Boulay can arrange that with Councilmember Fruman again. It's out of this world, and it's something that all of our students deserve access to.
Thank you. I second everything you said, and I had the good fortune when I testified at this at the DC Council, UDC would have to be the same day. And Warner Session, who's a member of the president of the Board of Trustees, said that the trustees would be interested in going if we did another tour. So I will try to reach out to Councilmember Fruman. We'll invite everybody here to see the space. And then maybe we'll have the members of the Board of Trustees, maybe hopefully members of council seeing this too, because I just think it is such an amazing possibility there. So at this time, I will do something a little unique. Since I've got the plate, I'd like to do what is a sequential referral, since this impacts both the C committee and the College Career Life Readiness Committee. We'll do sequential referral first to the C committee and then sequentially to the college career and life readiness committee on the issue of Whittle. Does that work? Okay, great.
I had no thing with it, but things are assigned to complete.
I just wanted to make sure that we were following procedures. Sequential
Well,
referral.
and everything, well, whatever you want to consider. And they could be.
Well, we'll take the first crack at it and then we'll send it over to them. Sequential referral. Okay, great. All right, so let's go to our last item on the agenda here, and then wrap things up, which is the, going back to item M, which is supporting student access to IDs. Representative Johnson Law, take it away.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know we've talked, a lot about IDs. I know we talked about, Eric's ID law, which is, amazing and very specific for our kiddos with disabilities. But there's also another, simultaneous issue, which is our babies getting the IDs in the first place, especially east of the river. And currently, I'm helping several students from Anacostia High School just navigate that process of getting their ID. The school doesn't seem to really understand what to do. The parents don't really seem to understand what to do. So now I'm having to reach out to like a director or a deputy director to be able to be like, okay, like they're a homeless student, you know, like what do they need to do? Like, are there certain forms? If you're homeless, like, well, what forms do they need? If is it this? Well, no, is it that? And then it depends on their familial homeless situation, like, because homelessness looks different for each kid. So then that determines which form they need. And I was just like, who, this is too much. And why is there not more of like a partnership? And so I was just thinking that maybe as we are talking about giving all this stuff to council, that I think we need to have a resolution from the board to say like, this is what we think. And to say, hey, I think that we should consider asking, we're not telling anyone to do anything, but we need to figure out some type of like partnership. If it's with the charters and the DMV, if it's DCPS and DMV, if it's OSSI, like we need to figure out what can we do to ease some of the burden on the schools and the families to be able to get kids their IDs, because it is now also impacting. I have a scholarship program, they need my ID. I have a job, I need my ID for my W-2s and all those things. I have an internship, I need my ID. I'm about to go to college, which I have many seniors, which is actually who I'm helping, they're seniors and they need their ID. I need to go somewhere, I need my ID. And so
Stuff on the DMV website, is it just not, it's not easy to understand, or they haven't, or they can't meet the requirements on the website, what's like the issue?
it's all the above. So D for all the above. It's, yes, it's on the website, but there is for some reason, I think they're struggling, one, to get the documents. So now there's a question of, if I'm homeless, okay, what documents do I need? And depending on the homeless situation, there are different documents, because they sent me 3 different ones. And I'm like, okay, I need to go back to the parent, but that's a lot. I don't think, and I don't mean to be rude, I don't think that the website is enough. And we put all this stuff on the websites and think that people are just supposed to like receive this information and understand this information. Well, maybe they don't, especially when there's a lot of information to go on. And so I think there should be a more equitable, accessible approach when it comes to our students in our schools. Like, why, you know, we have like a mobile DMV day, you know, I'm just throwing things out there. We're not telling anyone to do anything, but I think just as a board, as we're talking about IDs, we can't do anything. We can't get them a butterfly on the ID if they can't access it in the first place.
So your goal would be then to,
I've drafted something. I can,
okay, wonderful. So
I've already drafted
Okay,
it, so.
wonderful. Okay, that's great. Well, then that makes it easier. Okay, so let's do, first of all, does anybody have any questions for Representative?
Dr.
How does this relate to the bill that?
Yes,
Is this something that you would
so
need to like add to, or?
are you talking about Eric's ID, or are you talking about the Student Identification Card Act of 2025? So Eric's ID, of course, is like, you know, right. And then this is Henderson, Student Identification Card Act of 2025. So that's a bill.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
So this is specifically for schools to give every middle school and high school student a student identification card. Just for the school. I talked with her about this when this came up initially. last year when federal law enforcement rose. And so she was saying that, okay, like all of our kids go to different schools, like how will they know, that they are under the age of 18, that they're a minor. And so their proposal was, I think DC phased out the DC1 cards. And so you could use that for libraries and all the things. They phased that out. And so now what are students supposed to have? So her bill is just specifically like for the LEAs, basically. And I think I talked to her about this, and I think, again, we need to continue to push, which is why I'm asking you all to help me push. This is beyond the school will give you a student ID. Like our kids are they're going to work, internships, schools, all the things, and they are in need of a real ID. And they're running into different areas there that go beyond going on a website to read something. And so I have something drafted. I don't mind sharing it, but just as we are talking about, supporting Eric's idea, as we are talking about Councilmember Henderson's bill, I think just another viewpoint from the board to say, as you all are considering these things, this is another consideration that our students also need help with.
So, any further questions? I have a quick comment on it. I just really supportive of what you're doing with this. I think it complements what we're doing with Eric's ID well, because with this, we're focusing on trying to incentivize the agency to make it more customer friendly for youth to be able to get an ID and break some of those barriers down. And with youth who may be homeless, who may not have those documents, be able to really be helpful. So I think this is something that it really goes well with that, and definitely should be part of the standalone resolution. So since you've already got a draft of it, let's refer this to the Committee on Student Experience and Engagement, and we'll pick it up there.
Dr. Cole. Mr. Vice President, can I say something?
Yes.
Well, to you and Dr. Colson, I just want you to know that you are loved in the C committee. And I feel like there are a lot of things being referred to the C committee, and I know that you all were taken up. I don't know if I can be an honorary member, but I will talk to the leadership about maybe coming back to the C committee to help you, but for this specifically,
It's a work.
I mean, the good thing is any member may join any committee, so you don't have to ask permission. You may show up to the committee meeting and participate. You just don't count as a vote towards, unless you're on the official membership. So we look forward to working with you on this resolution as a member of the committee, and we have our chair. And so we'll be in touch, shortly for that. Sure.
all right, I'll send it.
So I'll let you talk to Dr. Wilson.
But after that, all due respect, Mr. Vice President, we are closed. We have other I have to get to. We need to get to bullying. We need to get to discipline. We get something every month. And we definitely want to take on these important issues. Thank you.
I think it's
Dr. Colson advancing our priorities.
Dr. Colson, that's the key. Move. Don't take your eye off the ball. That's right.
We got a tracker now.
Okay, wonderful. That's right. All right, well, we have made short work of this list, which is great. Does anyone have any announcements that they would like to make at this time? Or anything further that we have forgotten?
I have a quick one, which is I'm reconvening various agencies to talk about the status of the early literacy task force recommendations and then the legislation that's been put in place, just to check in on where we are and what's missing later this month.
Great. Any further announcements? I have to go back to the script here. So
I would just let us know when you have staff member there needs to run the day.
So now we will move to item 11, adjournment. So I'll say thank you, members, for your time and engagement tonight. We will next convene in our public meeting on the 20th. As a reminder to members and the public, the topic of our public meeting panel will be physical education standards. Members of the public can visit SBOE.dc.gov to learn how to submit and present testimony at an upcoming public meeting. All public witnesses must submit a written copy of their testimony to our staff for the public meeting record. Okay, so seeing no further business come before the state board, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn at this.
Motion to adjourn.
Hear a motion to adjourn from Representative Johnson Law. May I hear a second from someone? Second from Dr. Olson. Okay, the motion has been properly moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning the working session at this time, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none opposed, this working session is officially adjourned at 8:30 p.m.
Representative Best and Representative Chang at the school.
Yeah.